is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Jeremy Lee in the building and every guest that you ever needed. Sports cards after hours keep the hobby heated. Updates, hobby talk like you never seen it. Sports cards live and none could ever beat it. Sports cards is a lifestyle. Sports cards and we live now. Welcome to another episode of Sports Cards Live with your host, Jeremy Lee.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to episode number 307 of Sports Cards Live. It is Saturday night, March the 28th, 2026. My name is Jeremy Lee, and a few quick announcements. Tomorrow night, the Fanatics Weekly Auction Ending Watch Party is back here on the channel. And guys, if you're looking to sell some of your vintage collection, reach out to Leighton at Just Collect. Leighton at JustCollect.com can help you with that. Guys, I want to welcome Auction Wire to the family here. Auction Wire, you can go there. You can follow auctions from all the various auction platforms in the hobby. Use promo code SCL and you will get 60 days of free service versus the 30 that are currently offered. And guys, Mint Inc., whose shirt I am proudly wearing tonight, delivers the ultimate hobby experience, from live whatnot streams and auctions to grading breaks in 2 full retail locations in the greater Toronto area. They are buying collections 7 days a week. Click the link in the description below. Use promo code SCL5 for 5% off your first purchase. You can shop online anytime. Worldwide shipping. Mint Inc., where collecting comes to life. And I was seeing some great content out of the Front Row Card Show today in Atlanta. Guys, that show is happening this weekend. Their Seattle-Tacoma show is April 11th to 12th with 480 tables. Visit frontrowcardshow.com for more show dates and locations. And how about Mr. Minty, guys? Grading is expensive. Tying up your time, money, and assets. Get it right with Mr. Minty, offering a full line of 100% substance-free pre-grading supplies, grading preparation, evaluation services, concierge drop-off services for PSA and Beckett, all designed to help collectors save time and money in the expensive grading process. You can meet Mr. Minty in person at the London show, April 17th to 19th. Go to mrminty.com for more information and save 25% off products using promo code SCL25. And as Mr. Minty says himself, happy collecting and keep it minty. And guys, check out Chronosio, AI-powered collection assistant that allows boxes and boxes of cards to be scanned, documented, and listed for sale in just minutes. Works with sports cards, TCG cards, raw and slab cardboard. There are 2 bundles available on Walmart.com, eBay, Amazon, as well as certain hobby stores. And guys, these packages are called Cards to Cash bundles. They not only include the scanner, software supplies, but also, and this is the key, 1 hour of a one-on-one enablement session at the time of your choosing. Simply visit chronosio.com/booking. It's a huge part of the value. And not only does Chronosio work with you to get up and running, but they're always there to help people manage their cards and sell them online. Whether you're a collector or a hobby store looking to expand your business, go to chronosio.com to learn more. And guys, Collector Investor Auctions, their April auction preview is now live, 860 lots, and it runs April 2nd through April 12th. Go to collectorinvestorauctions.com. Guys, check out Inferno Red Technologies, ComC. And yeah, we got a great show in store for everybody tonight. David Chase is back. He's going to be joining us for the first half or so of the show. Joe Perot is going to come on for the second half. Closing it out will be Chris McGill and Joshua Adams as usual. And then our special guest tonight, we have Orlando. Everybody knows him by, or he's the hobby's mononym. He's the only guy. He's like Cher Madonna for the hobby. Bono, right? Orlando. Everybody knows him by just his first name. Orlando will be joining us, and Chris from Missouri will be joining us as well. I'm looking forward. It's gonna be a fun show tonight, guys. Let's bring out Mr. David Chase is back, buddy. How are you?
Good. Great to see you, Jeremy.
It's great to see you too, David. Always good to see, you, buddy. How's the week been? What's on your mind this week, hobby wise? Anything coming? Anything special? Any pickups? Anything you want to talk about?
Yeah, I mean, I'm such a mess. I went to a card show today, and one of the reasons why I went to this show is because I am blowing up my collection. Okay, I've decided that I'm going this is what the 48 leaf Jackie, that one that I was trying to consolidate into, it had me take an extra special look to this collection, right? That I have right now. And I've realized, I was actually texting a friend or two about this. I said, there are cards that I like that I do not love that are part of my collection. And there are cards that I love that I do not have. All right. And I want those cards that I love. So I just took an extra special look, and I am going to be selling a pretty significant amount. And I actually have a few things that are brewing in Strongsville. I have a couple of deals in place, including, and listen, it's not in my hands yet, so I can't make any major announcements yet, but I do have a deal in place to buy the most expensive card that I've ever purchased. How about
that sounds familiar to what you were planning on doing a few weeks ago there with the 48 Jackie, the PSA 1, which the owner has now shown it on Instagram, and I saw that kind of going around various people's story posts. And as I looked at that card again, I thought, yeah, that card was every bit of what we all thought it was. I mean, in two dimensions on our phones at least, but it'd be interesting to hear how it looks in hand as you move it around under the light and really inspect the surface and see what those little holes look like front and back and all that. But that card is beautiful.
I'm sure it's terrible. I'm sure it looks horrible.
I'm sure. Yeah. I'm sure it's not a card that'll show up on Maddie C's Eye Appeal Link or anything like that, right?
Definitely not.
Nothing like. I went to a card show today myself as well. Yeah, when we have the local monthly, and I found a few. I found a few cards. I picked up 4 cards there. I want to share those, and then a 5th bonus card I want to share as well. I'm going to show you guys really quick what I picked up from one guy, all from the same vendor, Jim. I've known him for years. He's been set up there for so long, but it's just sometimes nice to look at a showcase, and these cards represent buying cards that I had no intention of buying. I mean, had I not seen them, they would not have been on my radar. I thought, I like those cards, and I'm so excited by all 4 of them. So I'm going to start from kind of, I don't know. I'm just going to start by the way they're ordered in my hands. So for my baseball Hall of Fame memorabilia, not a super old guy, but this is a beautiful John Smoltz game used patch card right there from the Atlanta Braves. Numbered out of 25, nice. I think. Yeah, 25. Pretty cool card.
Very cool.
A piece of history from Upper Deck. Yeah, beautiful.
So before I felt like your new lane were these all-time Hall of Fame, from like the 50s and before. So you're now expanded, huh?
Well, I'll show you a bit more. Yeah, I mean a little bit. Dude, the card was like $20 Canadian. Like, how do you go wrong? It's like,
you can't say no.
I'm like, okay, I'll take that one too. Fine. In the same vein, sort of, is this one here. This is 2004 Upper Deck Ultimate Collection. This is Tim Duncan. Just a nice patch, numbered out of 100. I mean, these cards are cheap. Like, this was like $70 or something like that. Like, okay, nice.
He's like what? He's one of the most undervalued players in history. Like, he's like the 7th. He's considered like the 7th best player in the NBA.
In history.
Like, cards are in history. Yeah. The best power forward ever. And like, how is he not like more collected? Because he's boring. I like boring people. Yeah.
But I couldn't resist this. So now I'll keep my eyes open for more of cards from this set, maybe grab 3 or 4 altogether. But I grabbed that. So those are the 2 patch cards. And then all from the same guy. He had these 2 just sitting out on his tables. The next one, this is a 2003, I think. It's a 2003 Topps Chrome black refractor out of 500 of Vince Carter. Like, I know that's not the best view here, and for the people listening on pod, you can't see these anyway, but just a beautiful card, numbered out of 500 there on the back, as you can see, 17 of 500. And this little Topps Chrome logo, look at that in the light there. It's like hollow foil almost sort of thing. It's just beautiful. So that one, and then 90, I think it's 94. Topps Finest Refractor Barry Sanders.
So cool.
Just cool card. Just beautiful, cool cards. So I grabbed those off one guy. And then I ran into from the chat here, Double O's card guy, Jesse, who I've now met in person a few times here locally. I saw him. We ran into him at the LCS yesterday. Said, I'll see you tomorrow at the show. See him at the show today. And then And then he gifted me a very nice gift. So thank you, Jesse, for this today. This is Upper Deck 2007 SPX Iron Man Cal Ripken Jr. with game-worn bat and piece and jersey pieces. And this is numbered at 25 up there, only 25 pieces commemorating when he broke the Iron Man record.
Wait, what is it? That's a piece of bat on the left?
Yeah, one piece
and then
of
the
bat,
jersey?
3 jerseys and a piece of bat.
Oh,
Yeah,
that is so cool.
It's a combo, and the whole thing is there. You can't really read it, but there's text here on the face of the card talking about when he broke the record. So that's, this is a card that, yes, it has a Hall of Fame player. It's got game used memorabilia, but it's commemorating a moment. And to me, that's so very important. So thank you, Jesse. Love the card. I've scanned it. I've put it into the way I store the cards, and so it was a nice, successful trip to the local show today. So
that's awesome.
I was excited about that.
Let me tell you about my local show, which this shows you how much of a mess and where my head was at. So I was going there actually to go visit my friend who's a dealer. His name's John Irwin, and he's the only dealer I sell cards to. And I left early. The show was supposed to start at 9:30 in the morning. I left. It's in Los Angeles. I lived like south from there. Usually takes me an hour and a half. I go all the way there, and I'm literally just going there to sell these cards because I'm trying to get some money for Strongsville, right? And I get there, and as I get out of my car, I forgot the cards, like a complete idiot. After an hour and a half, I drove back home, then went back there again. I've been driving for like 6 hours today to go and make that deal. Complete mess. But it ended up being successful, and we ended up selling some cards. But in the mail, I ended up getting a card. So I have this 52 Topps Maze in a 3, and I like it, but I feel like it needs improvement. And I ended up upgrading by downgrading to, I got this little puppy in the mail. That's a 1.5. That's my kind of version of a card. That's a 1.5. There's like a little wrinkle that's over here. And the cool thing is I'm going to sell my 3. This is half the price of that. So I made money, Jeremy. I picked up a card and made money. That's the goal.
Upgrading by downgrading. I love that. And the surface looked really good. Like the image of Willie Mays on that 52 Topps looked really nice there, David.
Crazy.
Great color.
It has honest corners, Petty.
Yeah.
Honest corners, buddy.
Very nice.
Very
nice. Well, congratulations on the pickup. I mean, that's a beautiful, and all that money now to go towards other cards. So very exciting, my man. Very exciting. Let's say hello to the chat. We got Jacob Dahl with us. What's up, Jake? We got Bill Betts. There's Jesse 00 Cards guy. Laura, good evening to you. Confluence is here. There's Orlando. He will be joining us a little bit later. E105 is here. Welcome. Larry Gitlin. Rob Starr is here. Way to go, Rob Starr. Always good to see you. Can't wait for the Toronto Sport Card Expo. I see Rob there every time. Coming up April 30th to May the 3rd. Looking forward to that. Mookie Chilson is in the house. Hodges, welcome. Called Shot. Good evening to you. Ron Fig is here. There he is. There's the real Mike Petty. I don't know if I thanked him on the show, but Petty gave me a nice, I think it was him. Was it him or was it you? Who gave me the keychain? The Jackie Robinson? That was you that gave me that was you.
Jackie Robinson keychain? How can you not think of me?
That was you. Of course, that was you. I remember because you guys were there. We were all there together. I love it. I love my new Jackie Robinson 48 leaf keychain. Absolutely. Thorson J. Friggin Lee. What's up, Thorson? Good to see you. Welcome to the show. Hi, Pop Professor Brian. Guys, you got to check out his YouTube channel. I've been watching his stuff. It's enjoyable. There's Foul Ball. What's going on? Welcome to the show. Yankees fan is here. The curmudgeon is here. Flint Hall. Kyle for King of Cards is a okay, whatever. That has nothing to do with this show, Flint. Dylan Double D. Hi, guys. Be popping in and out. Dylan, always good to see you, buddy. Welcome to the show. Stukes is here. Good evening. David Cooey, welcome. Sven Patrick is here. There's Jeff Hart, Patriot Sports Cards. Good to see you, buddy. Mollico is here. Shaheen. What's going on, Shaheen? Mike Petty. He stirred the spaghetti. We got, everyone. What is that? I chatted with Jay Lee at the LCS yesterday and the local show today. Yes, you did. Hey, I'm the one who's blessed. It was good to see you. Orlando equals Madonna, says Orlando. Well, not everybody is known by one name, but you are Orlando. You absolutely are. Piccolina the cat is here. Sundine564 had a good week. Good to hear. Congrats on the Bowman's Best Atomic Refractors. I love those. There's Midlife Greg. He is here. What's going on, G? Welcome to the show. Hey, look who's here, everybody. Mr. Boozle is back in the house. Good to see you, Mr. Boozle. No pressure, Orlando, but the fate of the world is in play, he says. It absolutely is here tonight on the show. Mollico says Tim Duncan is beyond undervalued. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people, based on his play, his stats, his accolades, I think people generally agree with that. Hello, Anthony. Welcome to the show. Good to see you. Good to see you. We've got Orlando. I've been collecting football since the 80s, Orlando. It's funny how people like they think they know what you collect, but guys, you know, and nothing to Orlando, but I've been collecting football for a while, literally since about 1985. I'd say I've been picking up. Eric, thank you very
Canadian,
much.
Canadian, Jeremy.
What's that?
It's because you're Canadian. They're making assumptions based on that, you know?
Yeah, well, it is what it is. What's up, Mike Double V? Live from Calgary. It's Saturday night. Absolute. Petty jumped the shark back in 82, says Confluent. That's a good one. That's a good one. Laura says, Jay Lee. Oh, you have that card too, Laura. We're card bros. We're bro sis. We're card bro sisters. Exactly. Exactamundo. Dylan Double D. Part of the fun is putting a new card through your own system, scanning Excel, what you have, and then finding its final place. I love doing that's all part of hobbying. I'm with you, Dylan. That's how you play. That's how we play with our cards. We do things with them, right? Absolutely. Stukes is earning his national money this weekend, working at the LCS. Atta boy. Good stuff. What else we got? Anthony just bought a few Jackson Arnold autos. Congratulations. Nice 52 Mays for you from Eric. Good. The centering on the 50. Hey, they like your Topps Mays, David. Brian High-qual is loving it as well. Wow, all sorts of weirdness going on in the chat right now. High-qual. Hammer 40, what's going on? Straight Shooter, Steve Elmore, welcome to the show, buddy. Collector Charles is here. Lantern is here. Haas Bonaventure, finally catching it live in forever. Well, welcome back. As I always say, I love when people who watch after or podcast listeners come into the live stream for the first time or the first time in a while. It's good to have you back. Absolutely. Mookie is liquidating major cards to buy gas for the Strongsville drive. Absolutely. Good. Bob Boozler just heard Jeremy just started collecting hockey. Yeah, just like I just discovered it. Kinger is here. What's going on? Welcome to the show. All right. Well, we got here's an interesting one. So last week on the show, foul ball. I don't know if you remember, David, if you were on. I forget when he asked the question, but he put the question when we were talking about people's like top 25, 50, top 100 videos and how they're ranking them. Is it by your favorite? Is it by most expensive? And if it is, how do you
cards, know? Right? Your top
cards.
Favorite cards. Yeah.
Cards. Top favorite cards. We were talking about those ranking lists that people do, especially at the end of the year. And Foul Ball put into the chat, he goes, has anyone ever done your top 50 worst card videos? So, which is a fun question, right? So I get an email like a couple days later from a viewer who goes, hey, I guess he was listening to later, goes, I heard you guys talking about that. And he's like, I actually did a video. So I want to share it with you because this is for Foul Ball and everyone else. So here we go. I'm going to share my screen here and you can see Goodman and West 238. The guy's name is Dean, who has this channel. And he did his 50 worst cards, his 2025 countdown. So to answer Foul Ball, somebody there he is. He's in the chat right now. There he is. Yeah, right on. That is Darren. Dan says that is Darren's brother. Oh,
cool.
Okay, look at that. Oh, everyone knows Dean. Look at this. Dean. Love Dean. There's Foul Ball. Okay, so there you go, Foul Ball. It has been done before. And so I watched Dean's video here. It was awesome. Like to hear him talking about cards that like moved up and down the list, just like other people do when they do their top 25, 50, 100 sort of thing. It was just hilarious. So and there's some fun cards in there. So guys, check out Goodman and West 238 YouTube channel for that. That was fun. But I thought Foul Ball, there he is, Nice would get a kick out of that because he's the one that brought it up. And but what I don't know is if other people have done it as well. So let's ask the chat. Has anyone else out there done it? Or do you know anyone else has done it? Or Dean, are you the only one that you know that has ever done it? David, what do you think of that?
I love it. I mean, I think it's a hilarious concept. I wouldn't be able to do it because for me, I would sell the cards that I like the least, you know? So it takes a real collector to keep those cards that you like the least. I do appreciate that concept.
Absolutely. Dan says, I like that you two put my latest video in the suggestions on the right. So Dan, as I was just sharing it, I looked to see what's going to come up there. And at least it's all hobby stuff, but yeah, it's there. Oh, you just posted it 1 hour ago. Oh, maybe based on when I prepared, but yeah, good stuff. Good stuff. Well, Dean says he's never seen it done before. So he's the first one. Mookie says his video is a 101 genius. And listen, what I liked about it, and I don't know if this was Foul Ball's angle or not, but what I liked about it was it wasn't even like a mockery video. It was a serious video about like the lowest valued cards in his collection from number, I think there are 50 of them from 50 to number 1. What I liked is that, and I made the comment on the video, is that you get to see cards that you never see people sharing because people don't really share their lowest valued cards, especially dedicating a video towards it. So I thought it was awesome.
So wait, so that was lowest value cards, not the cards you like the least.
It was value. He did it by value.
Okay, that's different.
It was, but at the same token, like last week, most people do it by value so that they don't have to think about ranking I couldn't rank my cards, right? We talked about that last week. So
yeah, but you said you're going to try, right? We're expecting one from you in December of 2026.
Yeah, okay. I will set you up for disappointment right now that I might not be able to get around to it. We will see. We will see. But it was funny because he's like, usually you're like, oh, you see these videos like, well, this card's worth $50, and then my next one is 85, and then 150, 600, 800, 1,000, 5,000, 15,000. This one started like $97.35 all the way down to like $1.25, where awesome. Pennies had to come into play. It was a fun video. It was a fun video for sure. Yeah, he's never seen it done. What's up, Jeff McMahon? Welcome. Sundin says only true collectors in all caps keep their worst cards. Well, I mean, you know what though? What is worst by value? But like, I'm always willing to move out of cards that are the worst for me in terms of how much I love them or like them. It's just part of a constant curation. I like Bob Boozle. He's pivoting to ugly looking cards only. Charles says, what constitutes a worst card? Yeah, quality or value. That's really up to the person who's making the list, I would say. And as a viewer, I would want to know that up. I would just want to know how you're ranking it, which Dean does in his video. So all good. Anthony says, I think it is just as hard to find the cards you least like than your top 10. It's a great video. Absolutely. Petty says, wasn't one of them an empty holder? There was an empty holder in his video near the beginning. You got to go check out and see what that was about. I can't remember what that was. Boozle, my worst card changes with each pack I open. Absolutely. Sundin's comment was a joke. He was joking. Attaboy, Sundin. And Dan says, if you build a vintage set, there are going to be some not great cards in that set build. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Which is why, Jeremy, you're not the biggest set collector in the world, right? Because you don't love having those cards that don't really have meaning towards you, correct?
100%. I don't want those cards taking up space in my collection. I used to do sets. I just, there are a couple sets I collect, but they are not, I don't know. They've been grandfathered into my policy, the way I'm collecting. But yeah, especially when the cards become expensive, I'd rather put my money towards players who I really want to collect versus players that I'm only collecting because their names appeared on a checklist. But hey, set collecting is at the core, the foundation of this hobby, and I completely understand that, but I don't have to do it just because that's the case, right? So someone needs to build a vintage umpire card set, says Collector Charles. I didn't know they made umpire cards too much. Dan says,
isn't there 55 Bowman? I think 55 I think 55 Bowman might have umpire cards. Maybe I'm wrong. Let me know, chat.
Dan says every card has a story. There are no commons. I now call them uncommon cards. Yeah, Topps used to have cards they would call uncommon. Actually, they were called uncommon. It said it right on them. Yeah, I mean, it's a very nice way to try to be saying there are no commons, but common is a hobby term, and there certainly are commons out there. Orlando agrees, even though I was a set builder previously. I was too, Orlando, but it's clutter now. I find, especially baseball where the checklists are so long, 700-800 cards a lot of time. It's a lot of cards to fit into your wherever and however you keep your collection. So yeah, okay. What else we got before we bring Orlando on, which we're going to do in about 5 minutes? I want to mention just a quick update, guys, on the Hobby Spectrum, which I haven't talked a lot about because we've been making some changes to it, and some of those changes are now rolled out. For example, there's no longer a gate. It is no longer early access. This thing is wide open, but we've been adding a few features, and I want to share one of them now, which is the ability. You can see here, Trevor, you can add. We up the number of players, teams, and sports that you collect that you can add to your profile. So now you can add up to 10 players, 7 teams, and 7 sports. But if you pick a player, it automatically selects the sport for you and includes that. And working on expanding what this profile looks like. We have the what I collect over here, but we're going to be adding a couple more sort of tabs to this to round out how you collect, not just what I collect, but also certain preferences and some other things, so that you can not only learn sort of what dominant archetype somebody falls into, but also how they collect, what their preferences are, graded, raw, modern, vintage, all these different things are coming into play there as well. So if you went and completed the Hobby Spectrum assessment sometime, since December, you can go in. Some of the questions have been updated, revised. You can take it again. And then when you complete your profile, you can add in several links, hobby links, social media links, your website, to your podcast if you have one. If you don't have much of a hobby presence, but you've been a guest on someone else's podcast or someone else's YouTube show, put the link to that in there, and then people can see who you are and get to know you better that way. But also go in and add in the players you collect, the teams you collect if you're a team collector. And we're going to be adding more to that as well very soon. So keep checking that out, guys. It's pretty awesome. Collector Investor Auctions. Here's the preview, as I mentioned in the opening announcements. About 860 lots. This is going to go live on April 2nd, but the preview is open right now, and lot numbers 1 through 4 are visible on the screen. Shohei Ohtani, Steph Curry, Jackie Robinson, and a 61 Fleer Jerry West rookie, among many, many more. You can go check those out on collectorinvestorauctions.com. And then one more thing, David, I want to mention before we bring on Orlando and everybody else. Another video that caught my eye just the other day. No, not the other day. This was earlier today, I believe. Chris Sewell from Collector Investor Auctions, also from Collector Investor Baseball Card Collector Investor Dealer. Chris Sewell did a video titled, "Have We Lost the Plot on Grading Some Wild Value Adds That Are Beyond Logic?" I recommend you guys watch this video along with the 10,316 other people that have in the last 13 hours, 328 comments, including one from myself. I'll read you my I went through this. I watched this video, and this is just one example where he shows 2 Ken Griffey Jr. 89 Upper Deck rookies side by side here. Doesn't show the grades they're in. But at this point, you can see the one on the left sold for $6,000. The one on the right sold for $264. And Chris Sewell is looking at these as being like, if someone brought these raw to my table, I would be offering the same for both of them. But you put them in plastic, and it's incomprehensible that it's like over 30 to 1. What is that? That's like a 60 to 1 or so. 20, whatever that multiple is. 25 to 1 multiple type of thing. It's crazy. Anyway, check it out. My comment I wrote, "This is so good for hobbyists who collect cards, not holders. Let the holder collectors put all their money into plastic cases so they keep their money away from cards." It's so funny. I love it. I do. I love it that people are putting their money, like go spend your money on that. That means you're not spending your money on cards that us card collectors want to buy. You got card collectors and you got holder collectors. I think we're two different groups. A great video from Chris Sewell, as usual. David, did you happen to catch that one?
I didn't, but Greg did a similar video also this week where he was basically comparing like the difference between a common PSA 8 versus a PSA 9 in like 1954 and things like that. And the difference is like, $60 for the 8 and it's $3,500 for the 9, and literally you can't tell the difference between the two cards. So completely agree with you with the plastic.
And Chris he goes through about half a dozen examples, all very common cards. So, of course, yeah. Anyway, check out that video. It's pretty interesting. Absolutely. Confluence says that 90s Pro Set Hockey has referees and linesman cards. I wonder if the Pro Set Football had referees. Maybe they probably did. Mollico says I'm a minimalist. No sets for me. Stuke says anyone that plays on a professional team is special. Yeah, compared to us common folks, they are special. But compared to the better professional players, they're not so special. That's the thing. Like it's kind of relative. That's just my opinion. 90s auctions says Dave is right, and I believe he's the only player in football and baseball Hall of Fame. Not sure who we were talking about there, but that's okay.
But he said Dave is right, so I agree with him.
Dave is right. Dave is right. High-qual professors, go for flight collecting. It's a good way to not have to own every card from a set. Hey, but if you're a set collector, by all means, you love that. Like I went through many decades of loving it too, so I totally get it. Not trying to dissuade anyone from doing it. Just not for me. At least at this point. Hey, who knows? Maybe I'll get back to it one time. High-qual professors, 96 finest silvers are dubbed uncommon on the back. Absolutely. Collector Charles, they're still making Griffey cards. Confluence says, I just had an image in my head of Mookie dancing with water being dumped on him like a flash dance because he's caught in the rain. Oh, man, we're getting poetic here. Absolutely. Brian High-qual professor says that video from Chris Sewell was amazing. It absolutely was. Check it out, guys. And Anthony is building the 71 set. Can't believe how many cards are graded 7 and 8 that look terrible. I would never add to my PC. Yeah. Meanwhile, there's 3s and 4s that look nicer than 7s and 8s because that's just the way grading is. All right, David. Jacob Dahl loves set collecting teams and various other sets. Collect what you like, guys. We're never going to argue with that. Absolutely. Let's bring Orlando on. Orlando, give me a thumbs up if you are ready to come on to the show. He is ready, guys. Everyone, please welcome the hobby's only mononym collector, Mr. Orlando. Welcome to the show, brother. How are you?
I'm doing great, Jeremy. Hey, David. What an introduction. I'm honored. Thanks, guys.
Well, you guys know each other, so I don't need to say, hey, say hello. You guys know each other. But Orlando, I was thinking to myself, like, does anybody else does anybody else go by one name in not in the hobby, but in the YouTube world, the hobby content world? I think you're the only one that some people could say Mookie, but no, because you could be Mookie Betts. Like, you don't know who you're talking about. Is it Mookie Chilson? Is it Mookie Betts? But when you say Orlando, no one's thinking Cepeda. I'll put it to you that way. They're only thinking this man right over here. So what's it like, Orlando, to be a man known by one name?
It just feels great to be on YouTube and have so many friends. And, there aren't too many Orlandos out there on YouTube. I think I'm the only one. So, it is what it is. But I'm just loving it because it's a great community and so much love here.
Absolutely. And absolutely, man. And you give it, you get it, as you should. Look at the welcome. Jake Dahl, Jason Lieberman, Confluence. Looking great, Orlando, says Collector Charles.
Thank you,
I love
Charles.
it. Double D. So good. There's BW. Stukes from saying calling you out because in Miami. Mookie says Orlando is the mayor of Hobbytown, the GOAT. Bob Boozle calls out a few other people known by their thing. Yeah, Cher, Zendaya, Prince, Orlando, Madonna, Bono. There's a few. Absolutely. Here we go. Let's see. Dan says, I remember Orlando's first appearance on SCL. The chat was filled with all of us from the vintage community, and Jeremy was amazed at this support. Okay. Well, proud, maybe. I don't think it would have surprised me because I've just known Orlando to be such a great member of the community, a warm, welcoming, just always, I don't know, Orlando, everyone sings your praises all the time. So, you're look at this. 1 of 1. Orlando 1 of 1. Orlando should be in Cooperstown with a plaque and statue says Jim Sholey. There's Mike Petty just wants to sing to you, Orlando. He's singing to you. Everybody, Mike Double V, Sports Card Queen. What's up, Hockey Card Exchange? West 238 says Orlando is the GOAT. Hoops Hobby, well-deserved love. Hi, everyone. Orlando is the best. Yep. Hey, what's up, Spike Players Going Liquid? Just so much hobby love on Tuesday and Wednesday. Mike Petty, Orlando is the heart of our community. Yeah, he's great. So what's up, Filippelli? Welcome to the show. Orlando, what's going on? How you been? How's the hobby been treating you lately?
Well, it looks like I'm going to have to treat a lot of guys to some beers at Strongsville there for all the praise that I'm getting. So it's just incredible. I'm just honored, truly honored. But no, I mean, the hobby is strong. The hobby's great. Me, usually the same thing I usually do. I go to card shows, all the local card shows here. I visit the local card shops and just talk to the dealers, talk to the owners of the card shops, just kind of to get a feel for what's going on in the hobby. And me personally, just, focusing on my collection and, talked a little bit about that in my email that I sent you. And I just did a video recently about my collecting style and how I'm more focused now than I've ever been. And, just trying to create a collection that reflects me, who I am and what I love and, kind of my history and something that is unique, something's different, not just following the crowd, because it's very easy to just jump on eBay and I like this card, I like this, I like that. And you start buying stuff and accumulating stuff. And all of a sudden it's like, you've got the collection everybody else has. You've got, pretty much all the same cards. And after a while, you kind of get tired of seeing all these cards from the 60s and 70s at every show, at every table, at every place you go. And even on YouTube, people keep showing the same cards. And even though I watch the videos and I always say, oh, that's great, awesome, I'm proud, I'm happy that they got those cards. Some of those we've seen a million times. So it just kind of, I started focusing maybe 20, 30 years ago, just the people that don't know me, I've been collecting all my life. I'm 69 now. And I started collecting when I was about 8 or 9 years old in the late 60s and opening packs, building sets, just like everybody else did back in those days. And then in the last, I say 25 years is really, I feel, when I became a collector, as far as a collector, putting a collection that reflects who I am and putting some unique pieces in my collection that are different than everybody else, just something that when somebody sees my collection, they say, those are Orlando's cards. That's who he is. And that's kind of a reflection of him. And that's kind of what I've been trying to build the last 20, 25 years.
I think it's super inspiring. I have a question I'm going to pose to both you and David here, and just see and this is something as you're speaking, Orlando, I'm kind of formulating in my mind. And I wonder if you guys agree, the chat, if you guys agree, or if you see it a bit differently. But I think when people get into collecting at the very beginning, I think a lot of times we, being people coming into the hobby, whenever we did, we start collecting things that appeal to us. But then as we start to expand and talk to more people and see what's popular and whether it's watching videos or top 5 lists of players and cards and what's hot this month or this week, I think we often, or many collectors, start to then follow the herd and collect what everyone else is collecting because they think that's what they should do. And then I think as time goes by, you at some point realize, wait a second, why am I collecting what everybody else is collecting when I should be going back to my original roots and collecting maybe what I want to collect? And so I think, Orlando, because, you said in the last little bit, you've been going back and doing that. So I kind of wonder, am I just making this up in my head, or is that kind of a typical path or journey that people take upon coming into the hobby? It's like, oh, I collect this player, Ryan Sandberg. I'm going to collect Ryan Sandberg cards. But wait a second, everyone else is collecting Ken Griffey Jr. and Mike Trout and Shohei Ohtani. Maybe I should collect those guys as well. But you know what? as time goes by, it's like, you know what? No, I want to collect more Ryan Sandberg because that's my favorite player of all time. So I'm going to go do more of that. I pick him just completely randomly, but even for me, I think I started collecting what the player that I was chasing the most, the sets that I wanted to collect the most. Then it's like, oh, well, wait a second. Maybe I should be collecting some of this other stuff. And then a couple of years go by, maybe it's a couple decades. And it's like, you know what? No, I'm going to go back to what I love and try to just do it as smartly as I can. Orlando, from what you were saying, does that resonate with you in terms of the journey that people take? And have you seen other people, I guess, start to follow the lead that you are taking, which is go back to collecting what defines you as a collector, not what defines everybody else?
Yeah, I think that's exactly right, Jeremy. We start, a lot of guys started really set building, and there's nothing wrong with set building, but after you build, I build almost every set from the 50s and 60s and 70s, and after you go through that phase, you get to a point that you just feel like you're accumulating stuff. And like you said, there's commons out there that have no interest. I don't have any interest. The only reason I got them was to complete my set because, sometimes as a collector, we want to be a completionist. But eventually you realize that, you've accumulated so much stuff and you really have to look at it and say, what am I going to do? I'm getting older, at least in my case, I'm getting older. Do I really want to leave all these? I've got, I can't tell you what I got. I probably got, over 100,000 cards, and it gets to a point that you're saying, I can't leave this to my family. I need to do something. So when you start going through your collection, you say, why did I buy that? It's not something really that's me. Carlos, because I'm Carlos. He's a Mike Modano fan, so he likes Modano, and I think that's when I see a Modano card, I think of Carlos. And I took that approach of what do I really love, and what do I really like, but it's not something that I really treasure or something that has memories because, in the hobby spectrum, I'm a nostalgia, So I go back to my roots and go back to when I was a kid. And when I was a kid, my favorite player in the 60s growing up was Mickey Mantle. So, at one time I was building I literally almost built all the Hall of Fame player runs for all the Hall of Famers, back in the days, because I built the set. So I had most of those cards. But then I realized, am I a big fan of Al Kaline? No, I'm not. Why do I have all these Al Kaline cards? Why do I have all these guys that I'm just not a real fan of? So, that's when you focus more and look at cards that really meant a lot to you, players that mean a lot to you. So Mantle was my guy. So I built the Mantle run, except for the 52, because I couldn't afford it or anything like that. But as I realized that I had so much stuff that I really didn't want, I ended up selling a lot of that stuff and focusing on my love of Mickey Mantle. So eventually I was able to pick up the Mantle card by selling a lot of those sets that I built from the 50s, a lot of these players that I really wasn't in love with, and really kind of consolidated it into something that had more meaning to me personally, And, there's a lot of areas that I have in my collecting. There's kind of like, I call it four buckets, and, how kind of Iconic Al said it right. He says, build your bonsai tree, but trim off some of the areas there. You got to trim that tree, and you got to keep trimming that tree until that bonsai tree is exactly what you want out of that bonsai tree. So that's been the process that I've taken. And I focus kind of on four buckets, my Mantle collection, some pre-war Hall of Famers that I really like, some of the bigger names, really the top tier guys, like Mike Petty calls them the burrito guys,
The meat in the burritos.
Yeah, the meat in the burrito. And, I'm a football fan because living in South Florida, we didn't have any professional teams playing, back when I was growing up, until we got the Miami Dolphins in 1966. And I would go see the Dolphin games and became a football fan at the time. And, autographs, and I'd go ride my bike. I lived about 3 miles from the Orange Bowl where they played. So I was able to ride my bike with my buddies and go there and get autographs of these guys, Bob Greasy and Don Shula and Larry Zonka, all these guys. So I became a big football fan with that. And my kind of my fourth bucket is my heritage. I was born in Cuba, even though I came to this country when I was 4 years old. I came here in 1960. So really, I don't know much about Cuba, but from spending, the times with my grandfather and my father, who were both big fans, of sports, all sports, that kind of became one of my other areas of collecting. So it's, football, Mickey Mantle, Cuban cards, and that's kind of my my little niche, and I've kind of focused on that, and pre-war, of course. Yeah.
It sure is a nice feeling when you can sort of narrow it down to those lanes that you are the most passionate about, that you have the most amount of love for. And I saw in the chat here, I think it was Foul Ball made the comment that my complete sets only take a small area to store. I don't buy that excuse of not wanting to collect sets. And it's not just the physical area they take, it's the mental space as well. And everyone's different. So, not everyone's going to understand what it's like, but, I think it's sort of human nature to organize things in your head, to be able to tolerate a certain amount of clutter, whether it actually takes up physical clutter where you're stepping around things like, as if you're living in a hoarder's house, versus mental clutter, to just know what you have and organize it all in your head. And, I had several complete sets for a very long time, and I never once opened them and looked at, like 1990 Leaf baseball, my 1990 Upper Deck baseball set. I had these sets, and I just stopped. I didn't look at them for 25 years. Why am I lugging them around from house to house? I just didn't need them anymore. And that was an epiphany for me as far as collecting what came, because it allowed me to focus. That's just me. Some people can still focus amongst clutter, I'm sure, but I wasn't able to, and not as well anyway. And I find that it's a real like a weight off your shoulders kind of effect. If again, it's going to be different. We're all different psychology. We all come from different experiences. So David, let's go to you, but also that your thoughts on that evolution of a collector, if you don't mind too.
I'll do the thoughts of the collector, but just one thing about with the set collecting that you were just stating right there also, one thing that set collecting does is it gamifies the hobby a little bit, and it kind of makes it where it's something where you're trying to complete something, and it's a game that you play. And I totally understand that side of that, right? To be able to have that. And I think that the PSA set registry is trying to also gamify the hobby, which I like in theory, except I just don't like that it's ranking it based on grades, which is not probably the way that is going to be in the future to gamify it. But I do think that card collecting is missing that gamification, with us losing out on sets, especially with modern cards and stuff. I don't know if anybody collects sets of modern, or very little. So that's the part I do think is missing. I totally get the OGs that are still collecting. My dad's a crazy set collector, so I do have a place in my heart. I don't love it as much, but I get it. With the evolution in the hobby that you were just talking about, it reminds me of the question you asked, which was like the big topic after I was off the air last week, which was, what is an advanced collector? And there's nobody that is more of an advanced collector than our OG Orlando, right, Orlando? And part of what I was thinking at that time when you were discussing that is, I think evolving in the hobby is being an advanced collector. And part of that evolution that you're having is trying things out and going down a path, and then realizing that's not your path, and then maybe going back. I still think that's evolving, going back to where you were. But I just think, when I first came back into collecting, I was trying to buy the cheapest card for the grade, and all my stuff was completely off-centered, and I was buying the cheapest card possible. And if it hit like average prices, I wasn't buying it, you know? And then I realized that that's not the path I wanted to take because all my cards were ugly, right? So like the people who can evolve and try things over many years, like the OGs, I think that they really teach us how to be an advanced collector.
What do you think, Orlando?
Yeah, and I do want to tell Foul Ball that, you know, I have sets. It's not like I don't have sets. There are certain sets that have a lot of meaning for me. I have every set from the 1970s. And the reason I have not sold those is because I built those sets myself from packs when I was a young kid or a teenager. I opened those packs, I put those sets together. I still even have the checklist where I actually checked off every card as I got them out of the packs and put them in my sets. So it's not like I don't have sets, but the sets from the 50s, they didn't have as much meaning, 50s and 60s, because I kind of put those together at shows and things like that, versus the ones from the 70s that I remember pulling them from packs myself and putting them together and trading with my friends. So those had still some personal meanings, and I still have those, I still own those. So it's not like I don't have any sets, but the ones that have meaning to me are the ones that I kept, the ones that have, I'm personally attached to some of those, even though there's a lot of commons in there, but I remember pulling them from packs, and, you know, I just haven't, those are some that I just haven't been able to let go of yet.
Yeah, fair. You know, I don't personally do base sets anymore, but I love collecting certain insert sets where every player is, you know, not every player. Sometimes it might be 8 out of 10 or, you know, 12 out of 15 or whatever it is, but a smaller, more manageable insert set that'll fit in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 pages in a binder, where every player is someone that I at least remember watching play, if it's from a, you know, the last 45 years or so. And, you know, if it's players from before then, they don't really come into play in today's insert driven, parallel driven sets. But yeah, set collecting, I think there's so many different ways to define what is set collecting. Are we talking about vintage sets where there's, you know, 396 cards or 712 cards or whatever these numbers are, you know, from the 50s through the 80s, really. And then past there, you get into times where, I mean, remember in the 90s when people started to realize that they just couldn't collect everything anymore, and they had to either pick one set or one brand or whatever it was. You could not do it all anymore. And I think one of the ways that I adapted was, okay, I'm just going to ignore the base set because, again, I just don't need all these cards. They're just not interesting to me. And the key there is, to me, what do I want to collect? What's interesting? But insert sets, certain ones, memorabilia sets within bigger sets, I love collecting some of those, even though I will say I don't do many of those sets anymore. But some from like the late 90s, the early 2000s, I have binders filled with those sorts of sets. But the base set from the sets that those came from, I don't have those. Well, I do have some because they were in a collection, but I'm planning to get rid of all of it because it's taken up room that I don't want it to take up. So, I mean, we're talking about binders that are like, you know, 8 feet long, several binders lined up are 8 feet long. And I don't know. I just don't have the space for that. I don't have a warehouse or a storage unit or that kind of thing where I keep mass bulk. My storage for my cards is relatively small because it's, you know, and it's secure, and I don't have room for all. But then again, if I was collecting base sets, and I don't mean vintage, because vintage base sets have a ton of value, but if I was collecting base sets from even the 80s, the 90s, and since then, yeah, who cares if you lose them to a fire or a flood? You know, you can go replace those pretty easily. I'm not saying I would want that to happen, but yeah, it's interesting. But it comes down to what you want to collect. Go ahead, David.
And I have a question for Orlando about that. So Orlando, I know you said that you're kind of you're going down a direction for specific cards for yourself that really represent you, but you also said you have about 100,000 cards, right? Do you ever feel pressure from your family as we all get older to to consolidate with all of those cards. Like, what's your thought on that?
Yeah, that's what I'm working on. I mean, I have 5,000 count boxes of 70s commons, you know, and 80s commons and junk wax, you know, because, you know, one time I was a dealer. So I built sets, you know, the 87 top set, you know, I built it from packs. And of course, you get tons of doubles and all that. And, you know, I bought collections from people. And a lot of that stuff, I went through it and, you know, it's sitting in 5,000 count boxes. A lot of it's sitting in my garage. And to me, it's stuff that, you know, I got to get rid of it. I got rid of a lot of the anything that was worth some money. You know, it gets to a point, David, that, you know, if you want to continue your collection, you know, you have to make sacrifices. And I have to make sacrifices to get certain cards, and I had to give up some of my collection to go for that. I'm not one that has a lot of money. You know, I've just had a regular job, and, you know, I'm on Social Security now, and it's not like, you know, I've got the kind of money to go out and just buy a $10,000 card. In order for me to do that, I've got to sell some of my collection. But because I've got so many cards, because I've been collecting for a long time, you know, I'm able to go ahead and do that. And, you know, to me, it's a matter of, what am I going to prioritize? These sets from the 50s or 60s, or the dream card that I've always wanted and never been able to afford? So I sacrificed a lot of that stuff and was able to pick up, you know, something like this, you know. So
a 52 tops Mickey Mantle, everybody.
Yeah. So, you know, for
Not
me,
just a 52 tops Mickey Mantle, the 52. I mean, that is, when you picture a 52 Mantle, you picture Orlando's. That card.
It's a dream card I've always wanted, and I've looked to try to find the right card, you know, all my life. I've had chances to buy them, but you know, when I found this one, this is the one that was just the right one for me. And I did that by building up a fund, you know, and I built up a fund. You know, 5 years it took me of selling stuff, putting some money together. And even when I bought it, I fell a little short in the money. So I had to move some more stuff. But eventually, you know, I would have rather have that than a lot of other stuff that didn't have as much meaning in my life. You know, I wanted to finish. One of my goals when I was a kid was to have that Mantle run. And the only one I was missing was that 52. I was just never able to pick it up. And then, you know, finally for me, it just, you know, when you see that title, A Collector's Dream, I'm the collector, and that was one of my dreams. You know, that's really where it came down from.
Very nice.
I have a question that I've always wanted to ask you about that card. Because I've seen that, you know, you've had that for years, and I've watched your videos. And I've also shown on that recent video that you posted where you showed the backstory of that card in the collection, which is just amazing. And by the way, I love how you said that's the right card for me. That's the right card for everybody, Orlando. But that's funny that you say it that way. But I know that you, in your heart of hearts, you know that that card is not altered, right? Or minimum size, right? I know you know that. And I think that the whole hobby community understands that. And, you know, that teapot video, exactly, right?
It's
what a joke.
Minimum size.
Right? But that teapot video that I know you watched, because you are watching everything, I know, just like me, you ended up, you know, they submitted it. It came back as altered. It came back as different grades. And I know that every dealer that I've been talking to, when they find out that it shows minimum size, they send it to one grader, then the next, then the other. And I mean, PSA, I think, doesn't even charge you if it shows minimum size. Why? What is the reason why you are not resubmitting that card multiple times?
Well, it's been submitted to SGC, and they said it's a minimum size, and it's in a PSA holder also, which PSA wouldn't give it a grade either.
But you wouldn't want to try that again, because doesn't PSA not charge you if you try to do that?
Well, I think for a 52 Mantle, they will charge you because of the value of it. But, you know, the bottom line is I don't want to remove it from the PSA holder. I don't want anybody touching that card, you know. And SGC said we can reholder it in an SGC slab, and here's the label that we'll put on it. They'll put the minimum label on it, but I just don't even want to touch it. It came right from the original owner's collection into that slab, and that's where it's been. So I'm the second owner of that card from the guy that pulled it from the pack, and it went into that holder, and I'm not going to sell it. I'm not looking to sell it. So there's no need for me to just risk having it damaged. And the PSA has damaged cards in the past and reholdering it, whether it's in an SGC or anything else. I don't want to take that risk. I know it's a minimum size. I've measured it, and everybody's said it is a minimum size. It is not a trim card because I have the provenance of the card. But it just gets to a point, look, it's in my collection. I covered it up with my own label, so I don't have to see, because I don't want to even see the label. I want just to look at the card itself. And I know that it's an original card that was pulled from, a kid pulled it from a pack back in 1952. He put it in a little box with his toys, tied with a piece of twine in there. And it was there until he passed away and his family found it. And that's why it's such a sharp card and it's such bright colors. And, it doesn't need to be transported or done anything else to it. It is what it is. It's going to stay like that, until I pass away, or when I'm in my deathbed, then I'll look to sell it.
Well, yeah. I mean, my answer to David's question would be, unless you're selling it or on your deathbed, why would you give PSA more money to look at it again when they already had a chance to do it? Because they send it back to you. The only thing that could change the card would be like for the worst is if it gets damaged. It's not going to get better by breaking it out and having it graded again. The card's not going to change. The holder would change. The card wouldn't change. And at first, Orlando would show all of his friends and say, hey, look, my card's now a PSA 4 or whatever. And everyone would say, congratulations, Orlando. And then everyone's going to forget that anything even changed until Orlando goes to sell it when he's on his deathbed, sort of thing. So I'm with you, Orlando. Enjoy it for what it is. Unless you're going to sell it and giving PSA more of your money in order to get more money for yourself makes sense. But hey, by the time you're on your deathbed, who knows if that's going to be the hobby's choice anyway? I probably will be, but you just don't know. So interesting. We're going to go to some comments. Then we're going to bring Chris from Missouri on. We're running a couple minutes behind, but that happens sometimes. So we're going to go to some comments. I want to run through a bunch of them, guys. We'll bring Chris on. He will join us in the discussion. Foul Ball here said, Orlando is authentic. And West 238, Orlando is a Gem Mint 10. We're picking up where we left off, Orlando, earlier. High-qual Professor, Orlando is the GOAT. He's the most supportive of this hobby community. Bob Boozle says, I am copying Orlando's collection. It is also a reflection of him. Double O's card guy. In my return, I bought a bunch of stuff I wanted but didn't love. I've sold most of it now, and I'm focusing on certain items that speak to me, not just accumulating for collecting's sake. Makes sense. Jim Sholey says, too many sheep collecting goats. I mean, we are a farm out here, aren't we? Confluence says, zig when others zag when collecting. I hear that, and this isn't like, I want to slightly challenge this, not for any other reason than if we're saying, collect what represents you, collect what you like. If you are zigging when other people are zagging or whatever, or vice versa, you are still reacting to other people. You are not taking the power for yourself. You are still collecting in response to how other people are collecting. I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying I'd rather, and I don't probably do this perfectly, but I would rather collect for myself regardless of what anybody is doing. I'm going to zig if they're zigging, or I'm going to zig if they're zagging. I'd rather just jar when I'm jarring. Jar short for Jeremy. Midlife says, when I see a Warren Spawn card, I think of Jeremy Lee. Yeah, well, I've heard that before. Jay Mollico quite simply says, I love cards. I think we all agree with that. Vintage Collector says, quality over quantity all day long. I agree with that, but I think we all have our own definition of what is quantity. What is the right quantity for us? For Orlando, it's 100,000 cards. For me, it's like 2,500 cards. Mollico says, focus is the best for me, peppered with evolution. I love that. Focus peppered with evolution. Like, I think not focus won't be for everybody. It won't be for everybody. But if it is, and you pepper with evolution, and the reason why I'm responding, why this is resonating with me, is because this is kind of what I aim to do and how I try to collect. So Malco and I are on the same page. Mookie Chilson says, the benefit of my 30-year pause in collecting is I can experience everything now as a wiser adult. I can explore with focus and attention. I missed 30 years of lower prices, but also 30 years of mistakes. Well said, Mookie. Chris C says, I have 3 areas of my PC: vintage, PC guys, and 90s and sealed wax. I like that tree reference, the bonsai tree reference, to which High-qual Professor says, I care for my bonsai every day. Bob Boozle says, set collecting is a scam. He's kidding. That's a good one. Welcome to the Sports Card Professor. Foul Ball says, organization is the key to a large collection. Like, that's because that's what brings you from, I guess, hoarding to, I don't know, collecting. Maybe that's the difference, because a hoarder is collecting things, but as a collector, hoarding things. And maybe the difference is organization. I don't know, just kind of spitballing there. Mike Petty says, I used to love collecting sets. There's a chance I take it back up at some point. Yeah, hey man, whatever floats your boat, right? Chris says, I don't look down on anyone else's collecting tendencies. If everyone did the same thing, how boring would that be? Absolutely. Foul Ball says, Orlando is great. I totally understand. I feel like set collectors are looked down by the modern hobbyists. Maybe, but I don't look down on set collecting just because it's not for me. I don't look down on it. I think I probably look up to it because I do feel that set collecting is one of the foundations of the hobby. And I think card companies will tell you the same thing because they see what we don't. They see that people are buying these cards. Well, listen, I mean, I'm actually saying this because of a conversation I probably had 10 years ago with somebody at Upper Deck who was telling me, when I was thinking that, like, are people still collecting when the new brands are so filled with hits and mem cards and numbered cards and all the inserts, are people still collecting the base sets? And I was questioning that, and someone at Upper Deck said, yes, they are. Yes, they are. So, but I took that at face value. Anyway, I respect set collecting. Absolutely. So don't worry about that in here, Foul Ball. Jim Sholey says set building was a way of life before all the mass printing and production. Nowadays, the 71 Bob Mercer Vita Blue was a gold mine. Or whoever the last card in your set that you needed was a gold mine for somebody else. Patriot Sports Card says, one reason I like basketball in vintage is the sets are very small in relation to baseball and make it more palatable to rationalize. Yeah, that's even, I remember first discovering the 86 Fleer basketball sets, and I think all the sets for those first few years in Fleer basketball were like 132 cards. Like, how easy was that, even for someone who grew up collecting, by, focusing mostly on hockey at 396 cards, and baseball was a monster at like 700. Foul Ball says, I love all baseball cards, any year, any set. This guy says, don't roll up that mantle, Orlando. Don't roll up the mantle. BW says, not wanting anyone to touch my card is a real deal reason. And I love that when Orlando said that. And finally, for the ones I have marked right now, Anthony says, hey, Orlando, if you are happy with it, that is all that matters. Just enjoy the beauty of the card. Well said. Well said there by Anthony C. Go ahead, Orlando. Respond. David, give us a quick response, guys, and then we're going to bring Chris from Missouri onto the show.
Funny, because Anthony contacted me and asking me about the 71 set and wanted advice on how to build the set. I told him to go with the high numbers first, but I'm glad to see you're making progress on that, Anthony. But, the other comment was zig when others are zagging. And I just want to talk a little bit about that because, I'm a history buff and I'm a, big time history buff with baseball. I've read all the books and gone way, way back because baseball, since I'm also Cuban, started in Cuba in 1865. So just around a little bit after it started here in the United States. And I started researching a lot of things from the 19th century. And 20 or 25 years ago, I became a big fan of cards from the 1800s, from the 19th century. And one of the sets that I fell in love with was the 1888 Goodwin Champion set. And it was a set that nobody was collecting. Nobody even knew about it back in those days. And, I started trying to build that set as a set builder. And, I was zagging when other people was zigging. And now it ends up that it's become really, if you've never seen it, here's one of my cards from that set. And that's Tim Keefe. And yeah, this is an 8. It's the highest graded out there. And I put together the highest graded set of the 1888 Goodwin champions on the on the PSA registry. And when I got into this set, it's because of the players. And players like this guy here, Tim Keefe, he's the guy that invented the changeup. And those are the kind of things that are so good in history. This guy won 324 games. He went 6 years in a row where he won 30 or more games back in the day. And, had about a 2 ERA lifetime. And these cards are so beautiful because when I looked at it, the artwork on these, and I studied, I was in the printing business. And when I found out how these were made, they were made with limestone blocks. And they'd have to carve out every color on limestone blocks, and they were built by hand. So it was just so interesting, and I love the color of these, and thinking that these were, over 130 years old. And one of the popular cards in that set, and we don't have Joe Perot here, is the Isaac Murphy. And Isaac Murphy was the first Black athlete, and he was the richest athlete back in the day because he was the top jockey back then. And the sports that paid the most money was boxing with champions John L. Sullivan, and I have the John L. Sullivan card too in this set. And, John L. Sullivan went undefeated over 300 fights, and they made the heavyweight belt for him. He was the first heavyweight champion. But Isaac Murphy, and this is the highest graded Isaac Murphy in a 7. Isaac Murphy was, and still is, the jockey that has the highest winning percentage of any jockey. And today, they still give out every year the Isaac Murphy Award. And for horse racing, it's like the Cy Young Award. And this guy became a multimillionaire he was a slave. And he was taking care of horses. And at 14 years old, the guy that owned the farm, the horse farm, would go up to him and say, which horse should I race today? And when you hear the horse whisperer, this guy was the original horse whisperer. He would pick the winning horses, and he would he would ride them and train them at 14 years old. And then finally, the owner said, you need to be the jockey. And as a Black man back in the 1880s, you can just imagine what he went through. And he was literally poisoned and stuff like that. And he has a long history, and they've written books about him. But, those are the type of things that, to me, they kind of fill that sense of, history, and owning a piece of history, owning something that is, like this card, this is the first football.
One sec, Orlando. I'm just gonna interrupt you because Chris we're 15 minutes behind bringing Chris from Missouri on. So I want to just let him join the Chris, give me a thumbs up if I can't even see you're behind my camera. So Chris, I'm bringing you on. Okay, I'm bringing you on. Welcome, Chris, to the show. Well, where'd he go? Hold on.
He's here.
Oh, are you there, Chris?
He is here.
There he is. There he is. Sorry, but I couldn't see you. You're behind my camera, and but I know we're 15 minutes behind when I mentioned. So, but Orlando's given us some history lessons here, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, Orlando, but I want you to at least be here for this, Chris, so we can get you going. So, welcome here, buddy. It's good to have you. By the way.
Well, 15 extra minutes of Orlando's okay with me, by the way.
Oh, I know. Well, that's why I want him to continue, but I just wanted to bring you in. So okay, Orlando, back to you, please, if you don't mind finishing your story.
Well, Chris knows that I could talk all day here because I just love the cards, and I love history. So, just to finish off on, this is the first football card ever made. And since I'm a big football fan, I studied also football, and one of those things that I loved the history of football. And this is the guy from back in those days. It was Yale, Harvard, and Princeton. And this guy scored 30 touchdowns one year. He was the captain of Yale, the undefeated team, one of the greatest teams ever in college football back in the day. And just to tie on into one more football card I want to share, and this is the rarest football card out there. This is called the anonymous card. And you think of the Honus Wagner being such a rare baseball card. Well, this is rarer than a Honus Wagner. And this comes from the first football set ever made, which is the Mayo Cut Plug. And if you can see there, it says anonymous John Dunlop. Well, nobody knew who this guy was. Why? Because the name was not printed on the card. And this whole set has all the players' names printed on the card except for this one. When they noticed that this one, the name was missing, they took it off the printing press and they stopped printing it. There's just a handful of these known to exist. There's, from what I've gathered, there's about 10 total cards that exist of this John Dunlop. And he was a 3-time All-American, one of the best players from the era, and became a coach after that. So just, the history, something rare, something that I just love since I'm a big football fan. This is what's called the Grail card of football, the anonymous card, which is John Dunlop. And I know
Orlando,
about 12 in 2012, the last one was sold maybe 15 years ago, and Leighton actually owned one of these cards back in 2012. Leighton from Just Collect.
well, I was just going to say, Orlando, like I have not ever heard of that card until maybe I had, but it didn't sink in. So thanks for the information, the history lesson. That's some important information, interesting stuff. And what was the name of the jockey again? I know Joe Pro has one of his cards.
Isaac Murphy.
Isaac Murphy, yeah, like that's just incredible historical information. So appreciate you sharing. And one of the reasons why Orlando went down that path is because we were hit the segment with him was really intended to be about collecting in a way that defines you as a collector, and then sharing some of those cards that do define your collection. That's what Orlando just did without really overtly explaining what he was doing. He was showing cards that define his collection, that make up his personal museum, which does consist of 100,000 cards or so, but there are some that truly represent that overall collection. And I think a lot of us can do that. And it's funny because, the more types of cards you collect, the more lanes that you are in, the more cards you would need to properly reflect your overall collection. And with 100,000 cards, Orlando, at the beginning said he's in about 4 different lanes, and you just shared cards from each of those. So really interesting, Orlando. And I think, and I said to Chris and to David too, like pull out a few cards that kind of define your collection. If there was a museum to you, or even if you had to pick out 4 or 5 cards that represent those, that would be on the banner or the advertisement for your personal museum, what would they be? And with that, let's see if David, did you pull out a couple that kind of represented you? And Chris, did you do the same? Did you pull out a few? You did. Great.
I did.
I said to David before we went live, because I had a bit of a crazy day, I'm like, oh man, I didn't get a chance to pull out any of my own, but I happen to have a couple boxes sitting here so I can show a few. But why don't we go to you, David, first, and then we'll go to Chris and get into some Chris stuff. And so yeah, David, what do you have to show?
Orlando, incredible collection. I mean, it's you literally museum quality. So I just want to say that. But some of the cards that represent me, one of them is this 57 Bill Russell, and it's in a 1, which represents me because I like my 1s. But the craziest for me, this is not my most expensive card, but it's probably my favorite because literally, like, if you look at it, let's just say this, it's very hard to find this centered. And this is a centered one, which it's B. It has very rounded corners, but I love it. And then another one that I really love, the most undervalued card in the hobby, in my opinion. I know I've had this conversation with Greg too. but the cut corners bond bred Jackie. I mean, it's crazy. It's criminal how cheap this card is. And it's probably not going to be forever. It's a card that in my mind, I was thinking a couple years ago, I'm going to buy as many as I can of this card. Well, I bought one. Okay. And I love it. And then one other thing is I'm a flight collector, Jeremy, which you and Joe Perot coined the names of. And one of my prettiest flights, and it's so funny because I know you've talked about this flight before, and I'm like, that's my flight, which is the
I know
which
it.
is the Red Heart flight of these three, right?
Wow.
So I love the
gosh.
way that these three look together. It's like an incredible flight, right? We have the mantle, the spawn, and the mutual, and they're so bright and beautiful. And by the way, like this spawn is like a really like extremely cheap card. And I'll just show one more flight just because we're having fun. I have the Dandy flight too. That's a similar kind of scenario.
Beautiful.
Mantle, Dobie, and Feller. So yes, I'm not a set collector. That's kind of the way that I go. I just like to pick out a few of my favorites of each set, and I love looking at them together. That's what represents me.
Well, those red hearts, David. Bring him to the next time I see you at a show, please. You can try and work them out of your
funny
collection.
because I've heard you talk about it twice, and I'm like, every time I'm thinking in my mind, I have that flight. That's crazy. And literally, you said those three cards, which are the only three I have of that flight too.
Oh, amazing. I love those. I want those cards so bad. Beautiful, beautiful. How about you, Chris? And by the way, Chris's first time here on Sports Cards Live. So I want to welcome you to that community, if you will, Chris. It's great.
I feel honored. I guess I didn't grease the right hands because I've seen some of these guys that you had on before, and I've been wondering how in the heck they get on. But apparently I paid the right amounts. No, I really enjoy your show, and I'm honored to be on here with you guys. I mean, this is great. This is awesome.
Much appreciated, Chris. It's great to have you here. Long overdue. And so, yeah, let's see some cards that you feel represent your collection as well.
Okay, so I think here's what I wear this as a badge of honor. I think if there are some guys that started out maybe monetarily challenged at a young age, but they wanted to collect cards and they love cards, that's who I started out being, and that's who I feel like I stayed the path of. So, for instance, I'll tell you, I do a top 100 card video every year since I've been on YouTube, which is a little bit over 3 years. And I would imagine that 70% of all my top 100 are a grade 3 or lower. And, you know, the big grade on the card doesn't mean a ton to everybody, but it does. If I tell you that my card graded a 3, PSA 3, you kind of have a description in your mind already, whether, you know, you just have a description. And so I'm a rookie I've always been a vintage collector, and always been. Never once have I considered myself. Back in 1980, you know, I wasn't opening up 80 packs. I couldn't. I just didn't. And so I obtained a vintage collection at a young age, working for it, mowing yards. But I got to show this card. This is who I am, as who I am now, who I wanted to be as a kid. But I have to show this card every time I'm on here. I have to show that card.
What is it, please? So for the listeners,
this is a Satchel Paige 1949 leaf Satchel Paige, and it's in an SGC Authentic because it's been trimmed, and I know it's been trimmed. Golly, there you go. And this card, I had a chance to get this card or another card in a higher grade at the same price. And I chose this card. It was talking to me. And when I picked up this card at Strongsville last year, and this sounds weird because I'm not a teary-eyed kind of guy. You know, I ran over a few puppies on my way to town just for the heck. No, I did not. But
Hang on. Let me just pass you a tissue here, Chris. As you tell the story.
So something just came over me. Seriously, I got this card. I had a couple buddies with me, which is cool when that happens. But I had one of my best friends that went with me on that from Missouri. He just said, you were different it took you about 20 minutes to recover, because as a 13, 14, 15-year-old kid, I knew who Satchel Paige was. I knew that was a big card when I was 15 years old. That was a card that you saw in the Sporting News magazine that you were not going to get. You just knew you weren't going to get it. And I want to, my deal is I want to get all the Hall of Famers from 48 Bowman all the way up to 86 tops, because that's what fits in my cabinet, right? I designed this thing for that. And, I need 8 cards now to complete that run. And I need one more card to complete the Leaf set, and that's the Enos Slaughter. And I will have the same emotion when I pick up the 49 Leaf Enos Slaughter as I did when I picked up this Satchel Paige. And so to carry on with that, to follow up with that Leaf card, this is who I am as well. I want to show this card. This is not a rookie card. What I'm showing you now is a Ty Cobb, T206 Ty Cobb bat off shoulder. Now, those of you that are not watching this, that you're just listening, it has the left corner piece, a little bit piece missing, paper loss.
Just a little.
It has the right corner piece, paper loss, and it has in the middle by the bat, it's missing a piece of white. But I have all 4 of these Ty Cobbs in this T206 set. This is my lowest graded one. This is the worst eye appeal one. There's not a whole lot of creases in it, but that Cobb is who I am, and I would not change this. This Ty Cobb looked like it was standing next to me right after the Civil War, and we were in a battle somewhere, and it went out and took a few bullets and came back to the rest of the cards. That's what this looks like to me, and it would take a couple grown men to pull this thing out of my collection. That is who I am. And, somebody can look at it with different eyes and it means something less than them. But I got this card and it's staying right where it is. I mean, it's staying. And I do not, I'm not saying anybody that has high T2. I saw a T206 monster set without the Wagner, everything graded at least a 5 or above. I love that. I loved his cards. Looking at that is beautiful. Value was there, but it wasn't my card, and I'm keeping that's just who I am. And I feel like, there was a 10-year-old kid, and I'm talking about me, that watched other kids pick up cards and I couldn't, right? I couldn't, and I wasn't upset with them. It's just where my lot was in life. And I grabbed a Sporting News or Sport magazine, and there was a Bobby Bonds, in a picture of Bobby Bonds that was almost the size of a 54 Topps card. And I cut that piece of paper cut that picture out of that card, and I took a shoebox and I glued it on that shoebox, and that was my first baseball card. Mm. And I went and that same kid that picked up, that started out with that Bobby Bonds card, went to Dallas this past year and picked up this Willard's Chocolate Ty Cobb. And this Willard's Chocolate Ty Cobb is in a 3, but I love it. I mean, it's a SGC 3. I want to complete that set of Famers, or I want to complete that set, baseball set, because it has Eddie Collins and I believe Babe Ruth, and then it's done. That's the whole set. So I have one of the 3 cards in that set. So that's that. When I explain how I collect, that's me in a nutshell. And if there's somebody out there, that same thing, that they're like, man, I have been I have been very creative in how I could afford some of these cards throughout the years, and I love. I mean, I love the idea how I was able to pick up some of those cards.
Well, congrats, man. I mean, what you said with such conviction that these cards represent who I am, and I think we all felt it, the chat as well. I just want to comment on the 49 leaf satchel page with that is in the authentic evidence of trimming holder. There are many collectors who are on the pure side of things, don't want cards that have been trimmed or any sort of alteration. But there's a couple cards that I think are accepted from that way of thinking, and I think that's one of them. For a collector like myself, that card, your copy, would be more than welcome in my collection as well, and I'm sure just about everybody else's. The 52 Topps Mickey Mantle is for me is another one where I would happily own a copy that is slabbed as trimmed. Of course, I'd want it slabbed and to be very transparent about what it is. Because otherwise it's going to be probably something that's just not ever going to happen. So I love it, man. And even though it's been trimmed, it's one of those cases where you almost want to build that into the card's story. And it is part of the card's story. It just is. I mean, you can't get around it. It's part of that card's history. And I also wonder, this is kind of a bit of a tangent, but I wonder, like, if you have a card that's trimmed, I think there's two different ways of trimming a card, or two different intentions, right? One is intending to deceive somebody or to improve the grade of a card to extract more money from the eventual buyer. That's one way of trimming a card. The other way is that you're a kid, you're just trimming your card because you want it to fit into your holder, or a real innocent reason for trimming a card, but 50 years later it ends up in that trimmed holder because, well, as an innocent 13-year-old, you trimmed your card, sort of thing. So your card, even though it's trimmed, it has a story. I don't know which one it is between the two, but it's just part of the card story. And what do you think of that, Chris? Kind of those two different ways of looking at a card, and your card might be the more it might have been trimmed for that more deceitful sort of purposes, but at the end of the day, it's still an authentic copy. It's beautiful, and the registration was very strong. But how do you feel about that?
Well, that's great. I'm going to use another kid analogy kind of thing with me. Remember the old Christmas thing where the Island of Misfit Toys, right? That card had nothing to do with getting itself trimmed, right? I mean, somebody else did that. I didn't do it. It looked good enough for me to bring it into my collection. As long as I have this thing, and I want the card. I want the card, and it does not affect how much I love this card. It fit in my collection. One, it was a great card. Two, I wanted all the Hall of Famers from the 49 Leaf set. I wanted to complete the Satchel Paige run, so however it fits in there, it fits in there. Now, I couldn't afford something that was a lot nicer or a higher grade or something like that. But this was the best that I could do for what was available for me. And if I have to take something in, I mean, this Ty Cobb that's missing a couple pieces on it, it doesn't bother me at all. It doesn't bother me at all. I have the card. If I sit around and wait till I can afford that card, I'm gonna be
and you know what?
Right?
You would, even if that card wasn't trimmed, if it was in its original state, you would still take it and probably have to pay more. And now you get it. You still get the card. It's beautiful. It's beautiful, man. There are many copies that are much more expensive that are not nearly as nice. Okay, we got the guys. They want to jump in. Let's start with you, David Chase. What were you thinking?
I mean, I'm a Leaf guy, right? And that is, I mean, for me, above any other card in the hobby. That's my number one that I don't have, and you're one of 287 people on the planet, Chris, that get to have that card as their own. And I'll just let you know that I've looked at ones that have come up, which they don't come up very often because anyone that has it doesn't want to let it go, right? It's unlike even the other short prints where they come up from time to time. And these ones don't. And the ones that do come up, they look like they've been run over by a truck. And yours is incredible. And it's just annoying that it always has to be discussed, even though I said that to you, Orlando, so I apologize even now that I'm thinking about it. But that even has to be discussed, that it was altered, right? Because that card is so incredible compared to every other version that I ever see, right? I mean, they usually have tape going through it, tears through it, bent in 17 different ways. And yours looks like the picture that when you look up a card like on Vintage Card Pricing of what a page should look like, it's your card, right? So it's annoying that it has to even be discussed, right? That it's trimmed, but I'm just letting you know, me and almost tons of other collectors, we are very jealous, but not just jealous, but we're proud of you for being able to get a card like that, because it really represents the hobby. It represents you. And I know how special that card is.
Orlando?
Yeah,
and then Chris will give you a chance to respond to both. Oh, before Orlando, David, how many people can own that card? You said it. I did.
287. There's 287 copies, and that's how many have been graded. But you know that some of them have been cracked out.
Yeah,
so usually most short prints have about 210. This one has more because probably more people have tried to resubmit it. So I'm going to guess there's probably less than 200, but there's technically 287 in the pop.
Thank you. Okay, Orlando.
I was just going to say, and the story on that card, Chris, is just great. I remember I was at Strongsville with Chris, when he was getting that card. And the day before, he's saying, I got a deal going. I'm going to get it. But it's not here yet because the dealer was going to get the card at Strongsville and then give it to Chris. And Chris was so giddy and so excited the day before because he knew it was coming, but it wasn't there yet. It's like Christmas. And it was waiting for Christmas to open this gift. And then when he got that card in hand, let me tell you, that card went, I think 50 different people started looking. He just passed it around the whole room. Everybody was looking at it. And the smile on his face the entire weekend at Strongsville, he had such a big smile on his face. And it was like he just won the lotto. And, I've never seen Chris as happy as I saw him there. And to share that experience with all of his friends there and everybody that was there, it was just, I think that's the history of that card, is also the friends that you got that card with and that you shared it with everybody there. And I shared this because I got this card also at Strongsville, and I felt the same experience when I got this. I passed it around the room. At one point, I'm like, where's my cop card? Oh, he's looking at it over there, And it's just being with friends, that moment that you got that card in hand, it's just the greatest thing in the world. And the card is awesome, but the experience of getting it with your buddies, I think, was the best thing of it all. What do you think, Chris?
It does enhance the experience a little bit. I sometimes am embarrassed about what I'm taking to trade and how much I'm taking there to buy, and sometimes purchasing stuff is a private ordeal for me, just because. But the people that know my story were there, and those guys, I think, I don't want to have to apologize for picking up anything. I don't want to, but the guys that know me that were there knew how hard it was for me to eventually, be able to get that card. I actually took enough to trade and enough to buy a 52 Topps mantle. That was my goal. And, but I'd made up my mind. In Dallas at a card show in Dallas, because I saw a picture of this card, and I just decided I was going to take that money, and if it's not there, then maybe I'd do that. But again, where I'm at right now, I'm so glad I have that because it meets so many things in my collection. So no, it purchasing something with friends can be very rewarding, very much so.
The memory, the story. Go ahead, David.
So how, after you decided you wanted that card, how long did it take you to get it? Because they don't come up.
So, okay. So at that time in January, I was at a card show in Dallas, and I saw a picture of that card, and the dealer was going to be making that deal close to Strongsville, going to buy that card close to Strongsville, close to the day he'd already made a bid on it and was going to get it, but was going to wait till Strongsville to pick up all these cards. And then there was two other cards there, the two other satchel pages there. One of them was in a 2 on the other side of the room, and it was $15,000 more than this card right here. Okay. So when somebody, this is going to answer how I collect as well, right here. But I went to look at that card, and I didn't, I could have traded a ton of stuff and could have probably walked home with it because I took some very fluid cards to trade. And I just didn't like the idea of taking 80% on all these fluid cards just so I could get this card. But this is how I collect. Take that card that's a higher grade in a 2. Yeah, I wish I had a picture of it right here. And put it on a table, right? And then take this card right here and put it on a table. And then take $15,000 of $1 bills and put it on top of this card right here. And now, which card are you going to reach for? Me? I'm reaching for the card that I picked up. Not only did I get this card here, but I saved $15,000 in cash. And that embarrasses me to say I had $15,000. But that's how I collect. If I can pick up a card that looks good to me, and save a stack of money, I'm going to do that every time.
Yeah, totally hear you, Chris. That's we start off the show with a little story about upgrading by downgrading, and it's just, I don't know, to me it's kind of like the secret sauce that people are now realizing. Once you lose respect for the grade on the slab and you realize that it's not respectable, then you can start to do that and start respecting what looks good to you, not what looks good to some random dude based on some dated standards, let's say. So yeah, love it, Chris. Okay, guys, we have Joe Perot in the back. We're going to bring him on. So Orlando, I want to thank you, buddy, for coming back. Thank you for the history lesson. And hey, before you go, I bet Joe would like to say hello. So we're going to bring Joe on for just a couple minutes to say hello and goodbye to you as well, Orlando. Joe, you get to pop on, and Joe, okay, he's good. Welcome, Joe Perot. Welcome, Joe, as we say goodnight and goodbye to Orlando for the evening. But go ahead, Joe.
All right, Joe.
Awesome. No, I heard all of that, and you were the inspiration, Orlando. You're a historian, explications of the Isaac Murphy, and I've loved this show tonight. You guys are killing it. So I'm glad I got to share a little screen time with you, Orlando, and I'm sure we will again, hopefully sometime soon.
Right.
Absolutely.
Thanks,
Thank you,
guys.
Joe. Thank you, Orlando.
For having me on. Take
Absolutely.
care,
And Orlando, we're going to go to some comments from the chat. Some of them, I believe, will be about you. So stick around in the back or go watch whatever. But thanks for joining. Great to have you, buddy. And I look forward to seeing you this summer at the National.
I'll be in the chat.
All right. Thank you, Orlando. Joe Perot, welcome to the show. We're going to start talking about the Strongsville show, which is coming up in just a couple of weeks here, Chris. So I want to hear about that. But before we do that, let's just run through a few comments. These have been coming in for a little bit, about half an hour now, but I'm going to run through these. Luke Browning here said that the PSA set registry is keeping set or team set collecting alive. I hear what Luke Browning is saying, but I don't think that's it. I think it is I think it is the foundation of collecting that is keeping set and team collecting alive. I do, however, agree that the PSA set registry is helping it grow. It adds more people. It keeps more people involved. But I don't think it's the only thing, which is kind of the way this comment is written. Although I'm sure Luke is saying not that that's the only thing keeping it alive. I don't think it's the only thing keeping it alive, but it's certainly important to that. BW and guys on the panel, remember, if you have any thoughts on any of these comments, when I get through them all, I'll come back and ask you guys for any thoughts you might have had on them. BW says set collectors feel to me like purists. I see that. He says, he goes on to also say it's impossible not to follow the herd. That's an interesting comment right there. This is from earlier on in the show, but we talked about the evolution of a collector. You start off collecting what you like, players you're watching, then you realize what everyone else collects, so you start collecting what everyone collects, and then you're like, screw that, I'm taking the power back. I'm collecting what I want to collect. But BW says it's impossible not to follow the herd. Impossible is a really strong word here. I don't know if it's impossible, but I hear what he's saying. I want to get your guys' thoughts on that if we can come back to that shortly. Fresh Prince says, what's up, everybody? What were you getting into? What's up, Steve? Sports Card Queen, good to see you, says this live should have more likes. Appreciate that very much. Ben Burrows went to the front row card show in Atlanta, watched the Braves win on a walk-off grand slam live, and I'm back in time for SCL. What a day. Ben Burrows, glad to have you here and honored to be mentioned in the same sentence as those other two events. Rip Fan says, one of my favorites in my Jackie run. He must be talking about 48 Leaf. Greg says, what a great group of humans on the screen right now. Well, thank you very much on behalf of those guys, Greg. I don't know if it applies to me. Vintage Hot Stove says the red hearts look like a rainbow. Oh man, those red hearts are just beautiful. Jim says, Jay Lee, this show is beyond awesome tonight. The dopamine is extremely high. Thank you, sir. Well, that's a tribute to everyone else on the screen. So thank you for that. Jay Hawker says, Chris is a great asset to the hobby, which is rare for a Missouri guy. Mike Petty says, this is a great comment. It says, he's talking about Chris's Satchel Paige. He says, it's a generational card. It needs to be passed down from generation to generation. Like, so true. Well said, Mr. Petty. Anthony, another great show. Jeremy says, I've been collecting over 40 years and I'm always learning something new from you and your guest. Thank you so much, Anthony. And if you're still here, thank you very much. And Brad's Vintage says, love the Bonds story, Chris. Yeah, that was definitely a fun story. So a couple comments there kind of resonated with us. Who wants to kind of go first? Anyone have thoughts on their mind about any of those? And I failed to keep them noted, so I don't even remember exactly which ones they were. But as I'm not seeing any hands go up right now. Oh, Chris, please.
So the one about the PSA set registry, that it, keeps set collecting relevant. I am not a member of the PSA set registry, but I collect. I use it as a guide a lot of times. For instance, I do the base runs of Hall of Famers, right? I won 75 Hall of Fame base run. You can look up on the registry and see what all the cards are for Nolan Ryan, or all the cards are what's Ty Cobb's, what's considered his run, and I use that to go after, right? And that's how I use it. I collect the 300 great cards by Mike Payne because that's on the registry as well. I don't have a single card on the registry. I don't have anything written on the registry, so I don't care where I rank. I just want to have that card, right? I don't want to be a slave of the registry because it would say I get 0 points for this Satchel Paige because it is not a numbered card. It does not have a number on it. And plus it's not a PSA slab, of course, but I'd get 0 points for that. So I think set collectors keep themselves relevant. There's guys in here that are set collectors, and I don't do it anymore. I had all the way to 72, down to 72, from 89 down to 72. But what happened to me is in 1983, I was collecting the other sets, not finishing anything. But in 1983, a guy brought a set to me and he said, would you be interested in buying this? One, I didn't have to put it together. Two, all I had to do is put it in a binder, and hell, that was worth a lot of money for me, And so, okay, 84, I was not looking to collect the sets. I was looking to buy the set, and I had the sets. And the reason I stopped doing that is because it looked like I was collecting binders to me, and all the cards that I was getting cards out of there and messing with those cards, and then just not putting them back. And then I'd save a day and put them all back. And the reason I stopped doing it was the fact that we've moved 10 different times. My wife and I have purchased 10 different houses over the year, 11 now. And moving those things was just daunting to me. And so at some point I felt like I had to trim down. I think set collectors are keeping themselves relevant, and they talk to dealers and say, I'm working on this. And if they got some kind of relationship with that dealer or dealers, those dealers are going to help them or do their best to help them finish that set. So I don't think PSA is keeping it relevant. They may be keeping the rich guys, that are wanting graded in an 8, and then, putting their muscle up and saying, I got the number 4 set in the hobby. What do you have? And I got some of my best friends are high ranking PSA on the PSA set registry. I'm not saying that, but that's who they're keeping relevant. Those guys that can trade in a Manny Mota card and put it in a 9. That's what I think. So,
the sad thing about those high ranking PSA set registry guys is that I don't know what percent of their collection, but it's a lot more than they would admit to, should be in evidence of trimming holders like your Satchel Paige. So just because you got all the money in the world or enough to buy, or you've just been smart and you put together this high rank set, that's all it is a high rank set. I have much more interest in a low ranking set that looks better than the high ranking sets. To me, that's the winner right there. Go ahead, David, and Joe will get your thoughts on all this as soon as David's done. Go ahead, David.
So it's interesting to me, Chris, because you're saying that you collect a little bit lower grades, and that you're not part of the registry. And I'm only saying this to be silly, but one of the most popular shows that you're on is Showcase Showdown, right? Which, by the way, I'm rooting for you every single time. Okay, it's no doubt about that. Every time I watch it. But it's funny that you guys only care about the PSA or the SGC score, right? And you give no thought on what a card looks like. And there's many times, Chris, that I see that Mike beats you, but I look at your card and I like yours a lot better. So what are we going to do to Showcase Showdown, which, by the way, is a series that Chris does where him and Mike, they show like a set of cards or a version of cards, and they basically have, they have every card imaginable that you could ever want, and they have every card, and they kind of have a competition with it, but it's all based on the grade. Chris, how do we get you to win and not only worry about the grade and worry about the look of the card? Tell me.
Well,
it's show business, David. It's show business.
That's right. And
okay.
So that does seem hypocritical, but let me tell you this. I got friends that live close to me, and I'm not above cheating. So if it takes me to borrow, no, I'm kidding. But no, it's this year on Showcase Showdown, we have actually had every card, right? And we had a guy, we've had 2 guys on here on this year that showed 8s of the whole 1960. My buddy has an 8 of all the 1964 cards, right? We had another guy on here, Matt, who just, but I take a deep breath when I pull out a card and I have the card, right? And if that grade back in the day, if that grade back in the day graded an 8 and I won, matter of fact, we got 54 Red Heart coming up this week. And I believe I'm the odds-on favorite to win the Red Heart set. But we have fun doing it. the only time that grade matters is that 1 hour on Showcase Showdown for me. So
Good. That's a good question, David. But like
Yeah.
I said, it's show business, eh? I mean,
Yeah.
that's what it comes down to, for sure. Skeppy earlier said there's more than one herd, which is really an interesting. That's a whole conversation. Skeppy always has these comments I'm noticing where it's like that's a whole episode, bro. So, Skeppy, I need you to send me a list of all these great comments you made so I can actually give some time to them, please. And then Dan here said 75% of set collecting is raw in binders, which I think he's speaking to the comment about what is driving set collecting. And he's saying it's not necessarily the PSA set registry. And I don't know where Dan gets 75% because it's like 99% likely that he's wrong. It's not 75%. It might be 76 or 74. But I would actually think it might be less. Sorry, it might be more than that, Dan. I think it might be more. I think that the graded set registry collecting community is the vast minority, but how vast, I don't know. 75%, maybe he's bang on, right? It could be. Joe, good to see you, buddy. What are your thoughts? You've soaked some of this in. Why don't you give us some of your thoughts on this topic or others that we've been talking about so far?
So many others. Well, on this topic of set collecting, I mean, I think, as you know, I kind of morphed over into the flight collecting a little bit more. And when I think about it, it might be a byproduct of, when I was set collecting, which was in my very younger days and even into my early 20s, I was still, grabbing a Brad Doherty to complete an 87, 88 Fleer basketball set, spending $20 and then asking myself, did I really need to spend $20 on Brad Doherty? And maybe I did to feel that sense of completion. I don't know. But I think it was when I sort of transitioned to being more of a card collector than a sports fan, which is strange to say, right? Like I am still probably more of a sports fan, but somewhere along the way, the calibration of card collecting became more important than, the utility infielders and the backup, third baseman, the, left fielder, right fielder, names that in certain contexts, I can definitely go down the rabbit hole and appreciate each and every person and fall in love with a set, because that's part of what you're doing when you are a set collector, is you're falling in love with the aesthetics of the set and all the things that they did with the photography and the design. And I can certainly do all that. But there was a moment where I kind of got a little bit more focused in on key issues of a particular set and kind of wanting to see them together. But, you can do that in a 53 tops with a Jackie, a Satchel, and a Mickey. You can do that in certain the Red Heart that Chris just brought up. I mean, there's ways to beautifully appreciate a set in a more consolidated way and in a way that probably, allows you to feel like you're entering into areas where you're not frittering away resources on a Brad Doherty, but you're really consolidating resources on the things that matter. And of course, they should matter to you. When I say they matter, it's a subjective statement.
Well said, man. Yeah. Go ahead, David.
Yeah, I resonate exactly what you just said, Joe. Like I used to be the biggest sports fan of all time growing up. And since I've had a family, it has decreased in my life. And the hobby is way more, I'm way more into this hobby than I am a sports fan now. Yeah. And it's by a significant amount.
I'm thinking about that too. And once I'll just go, Chris, then we'll go to you. I started out the same way. Sports fan, card collector, consumed by cards, still a sports fan for many years. But now I watch modern sports, but I don't collect the modern sports cards as much. A few players here and they're much more interested in the history. So I'm much more of a sports card collector than I am a sports fan. But that's right now. And I guess if I were to stack them both up, the card collecting stack would be higher than the sports fan stack, but that hasn't always been the case. I personally, I don't know. I don't think there's anything wrong with loving to collect cards, even of players that you don't maybe watch all the time, but you are watching highlights, you are reading stories, you are seeing them on social media, whatever it might be. Listen, you don't need to explain why you collect anything. You don't need to. It's nobody's concern really, unless you make it their concern. So I'm with you on that. And there's some comments in the chat which are saying the same thing. Dylan says, I'm 90% card collector, 10% sports fan. Dino Lacobo says, I'm also much more of a card collector than a sports fan. Strange how that happens. Absolutely. But it does. And you don't need to explain it. That's the thing. It's fine. Be you. If anyone doesn't like it, too bad for them. Chris, let's go to you.
You just kept talking. You just kept talking and stole my thunder there for a second, because here's what I was going to say. You can be curious on why somebody collects some way. You know, I can ask why. They don't need to win me over. You know, I don't need for them to win me over. And just like you finished up there, you know, be yourself, because everybody else is taken, man. And so just be yourself. I probably should have stopped there, but I was at a card show. And it was a great card show. And my buddy that worked, he's one of my employees. He is an Austin Riley fan. Okay. And this was 2 years ago. And he collected base cards, and he sent off a ton of cards to get graded. And he came and he had 9 Austin Riley cards in a 9. And he sets them on my table at this card show. And I go, what do you want me to do with those? You know, I'm not, all the stuff on my stuff is vintage. And he says, put them in a box. I don't want them. Give them away to a kid. Somebody came and bought a lot of my stuff. So I'm like, it's toward the end of the show. I just try to be a little funny. I take those 9 cards and put them in my showcase, because my showcase is empty. This kid couldn't have been 11 years old. And he's walking around with his briefcase with his dad, his Zion case. And he goes, Dad, what idiot would have 9 Austin Riley cards for sale in a 9? And the dad said, son, he shouldn't have to explain to you what he collects. So right. I thought that was a pretty good answer, but I thought it was even funnier about that kid, you know, basically saying, hey, look at that guy with those cards.
Yeah.
But
it's a good lesson the father taught.
It Absolutely. Is. It's very
Wise
good.
Words.
Very
Wise
good.
words. John 3D 80s kid says, when I started being older than coaches and managers, I found it hard to stay invested heavily in fandom. It's an interesting comment he makes, because it's weird. It's weird to me to idolize any other human other than, like, you know, especially an athlete or a celebrity. Like, idolizing athletes and celebrities is a little bit weird, I think. When you're young, it's a little bit more, understandable, because, you know, it just is. But when you become older than these 20-year-olds or 22-year-olds who are, you know, excelling at their sport, making tens of millions of dollars a season, and here we are, as, you know, whatever your age is, in your 40s, your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, your 80s, and are people in their 50s to 80s really idolizing a 25-year-old kid? I don't think so. I don't think they are. I think by then you gain enough sort of knowledge and wisdom to know that it's just a person who's great at what they do, making a lot of money. No reason to idolize them. So it's an interesting concept, and something I think a lot of us probably try to rationalize in our head. Why are we collecting these pictures of other human beings? What does that say about us? And I don't know the answer to that, but collecting's in your blood, or it isn't, I think, in a lot of ways. One sec. Hold your thought, David. Hold your thought for a second here. BW said, I'm trying to be done explaining things to people to death. Yeah, absolutely. Mollico says, I am more cards than current sports for sure. And then lastly, Chris C here said, flight collecting like Boeing. So for the people who've asked, and someone else asked, how many cards makes a flight? Allow me to read to you the definition of flight collecting from this book by a new author, first-time author Jeremy Lee, called Pops and Comps. On page 353, there's the definition of flight collecting. I'd like to read this to you guys. It says, a collecting approach that builds a flight of cards as a way of representing a set or a player without pursuing the entire run. Instead of stopping at just one example through type collecting, see type collecting is separately defined, A flight might include 3, 4, or 5 favorites. It could be 6, 7, or 8 as well. The same logic can apply to player collecting rather than chasing every card of a star across decades. A collector might select a handful of key cards to represent that player in their collection. Flight collection is essentially an expanded form of type collecting and falls somewhere between type collecting and set collecting. And then it does go on to say, the term flight is borrowed from its broader usage across many categories where a small curated selection is used to explore range, variation, or preference without committing to the full offering. In that sense, flight collecting reflects intentional sampling rather than completion. I like that last bit, intentional sampling rather than completion. So I hope that explains what the theory behind flight collecting really is. Okay, before you go, David, I'm going to let you. We've got Chris in the back. Josh will be there momentarily. We're going to switch again from Chris from Missouri over to Chris Hoge and Josh Adam. But before we do that, I want to give David jump in. And then Chris, I want to talk briefly about Strongsville. David, what were you going to jump in with, please?
Just very quickly, I've had that exact same thought about idolizing your players when you're younger. And a card is a little bit like an idol, right, of that player. And that's why, for me, it's the cards that represent me the most were ones when I was a kid that I collected during the junk wax era. And now even the vintage people, because they are older than me. And it is easier to idol people who are older than you. And that might be part of the reason why I have a really hard time trying to collect modern, exactly why you said, because they're younger than us. You know, everybody except for LeBron, because he's older than all of us. But yeah, but I agree with you in that statement that you said before. Absolutely.
Well, Brad here makes a good point. He says you don't need to idolize players to enjoy watching your team. No, of course not. That comes from civic pride and having something that you and your friends are, that being a fan of a team, I think, is completely different than idolizing a player. So yeah, a great comment, but I don't think it's related to what we were just really talking about too much. Okay. Oh, BW says, I might pursue flight collecting. And you can do it as you can augment your collecting approach by just bringing that in. It doesn't have to take over or replace anything you're doing. Although it is that compromise between type collecting, which has been a long-standing form of collecting where you want one card per set. So you have you have one type of each card made sort of thing, versus set collecting, which can be overwhelming and really eat into your resources if you want more of a selection. So, okay. Chris from Missouri, Strongsville is coming up. You are known as the mayor of Strongsville in our hobby. I think it's because you live in Missouri. You live close to where the Strongsville show is, even though Strongsville is in Ohio. How are you the mayor of Missouri? Please explain that and just let us know what you're excited for and what the events are at the show this year.
Okay, so first of all, on the mayor of Missouri, I live 13 and a half hours away from Strongsville.
Okay, my bad.
I've driven it almost, this is going to be 4 years now. I was invited up to Strongsville by Don, Field of Dreams, and Scott Reindeer Studios a long time ago. And when I got up there, the show was in the ballroom, very small show. And there was 7 of us YouTubers that were there. And I don't know, I fell in love with it. And we started doing videos promoting that thing. And the following year we got a little room, and we had about 45 people that come up to what I called a meet and greet. And we just hung out after the show, and a couple dealers came over maybe. Well, last year we had a meet and greet on that Friday night, and we had a live showcase showdown, and we had 81 YouTubers and friends of YouTubers show up. So they moved that, and it kind of screwed up our location where we were having this event. And so on Friday night this year, we're going to have a meet and greet on Friday. There's going to be a trade night on Saturday, different location, different hotel. And I wish I knew the name of that hotel, by the way, because I'd give them a plug. Somebody will say something in the comments. But at the Embassy Suites, we have a huge room now that is very costly. So I'm looking for another sponsor to help guarantee some of the stuff. But anyway, that Friday night when we get there after the show, we're going to have a meet and greet starting about 6:30 at the Embassy Suites. We have a room there. We're going to have a buffet of finger food and stuff. We have a bartender that's going to be there. Please, if you're going to drink responsibly, but use the bartender that is provided, because that goes toward having to guarantee this thing, and it's like paying for a wedding. So drink up if you're gonna drink, buy it there. But on Friday, so what we're also going to do is we're going to have a drawing for different prizes. We have different donations. We have a couple of authors, and I'll keep this short. We have a couple nice cards. We have a Pujols rookie, Ichiro rookie that we're going to have drawings for. We're going to have some, different. Penny Sleever is going to provide some stuff. Rabbit Hole Auction is going to provide some stuff. I believe, he's a sponsor of yours.
Leighton?
CIA?
No.
Leighton Sheldon?
Leighton, but what's his other?
Auction Wire.
Auction Wire. Sorry. I need to learn a little bit more, but Auction Wire is going to help promote this and be a big sponsor of it. But anyway, any money that we collect on this drawing, any money that we collect off the drawing, we're going to send 2 different groups. We're going to give that money to do 2 different mission trips. Theo Clemente Collector and Hugo Signs of the Pastime are going to the Dominican Republic for a mission trip. I just think it would be cool if they got some money that was given them from the YouTube community. And then Mike Baseball Collector goes to Ecuador with his wife on a mission trip with her church. We would like to give them some. So sorry I took so long, but we're going to have a great time visiting with friends. You get a chance to meet up with, if you're hearing this and you're not a YouTuber but can get there, you're welcome to come. You're welcome to be there. Come meet some of your favorite content creators. Just come. It's going to be like a reunion.
That's
and
great.
It's growing every year. And anyway, I appreciate the fact that you had me on here and I was able to say that out loud. So
Yeah.
means a lot to me.
Oh, it's my.
And the mayor of Strongsville, I think Mookie Chilson gave that name to me, and Scott Reindeer Studio made me a shirt. And next thing you know, I think I might have finished second in the primaries last year at the real election. I'm not
Here's
certain.
the funny. Brad's Vintage here says, Chris, I thought Strongsville was in Missouri until I booked my hotel this year since you are the mayor. This is actually true. True story. That's good. That's great. Well, listen, I think it's nice that you're doing some sort of charitable initiatives during the show. Also, Dan says that there's trade night at the Holiday Inn. John says what Dan said, so I guess that's validating that, not that it needed validation. Orlando also says anyone can attend, not just YouTube content creators, and that's how a lot of people become content creators, by attending these events and then becoming a content creator themselves. So definitely worthwhile to do that. So Chris, great to have you, man. Thanks for joining the show, and yeah, man, have a great time in Strongsville. And will you beat the National in the summer?
There's a 50-50 chance. I got business going on during that time, but yeah.
Okay. Well, if you are, I hope to meet you. If not, hopefully Strongsville next year. But thanks so much for joining, Chris. It's been great to have you. It's been great having you. David, we're going to say goodnight to you too. We're doing a full swap here. So Chris, thank you so much. David, thank you so much for being here and helping me out with the show. I appreciate it. We're gonna swap out and start the final stretch here, guys. So good night to you both. Thanks as always. And oh, by the way, guys, no show next Saturday for all you guys on the screen, all you regulars, all you in the chat. I will be at the Edmonton Expo next Saturday, so there will not be Sports Cards Live. I apologize to the podcast listeners, though. There will be podcasts coming out as per usual, but no SCL Saturday Night live stream. My apologies for that. But okay, David, Chris, thank you so much, both of you. Talk to you soon. All right, Joe.
Hey.
Hi.
What's going on? Great show. You guys are slaying it.
Well, it's there seems to be so much to say tonight. Like, not obviously a good thing, but like Orlando with the history lessons, the storytelling from Chris, David, with always got great comments and questions.
You remember the old days when you used to take notes, like, oh, I got to use this in a different show, another show, like this will be a good topic. It's like this show, you'd have like a list this long because there's been so many deep.
I know. And then I got Skeppy in the chat coming up with great questions, but like,
Bob Boozle's in the chat, Skeppy, like all the all-stars. It's an all-star chat tonight too.
Awesome. All right, let's bring on the closers. All right, Chris and Josh, thumbs up from you both. Chris is good. Welcome to the show. Josh, I can't see you behind my camera. I'm bringing you on now. There he is. There he is. Guys, how are you? Chris, Josh, how are you guys?
Doing well. That 1888 Goodwin Tim Keefe PSA 8 that Orlando showed off, that's a really cool card. I was researching it after he showed it. And the inventor of the changeup, that
was a nice factoid.
I like the story that he told about that card and about that first football card, and there's a lot of cool stuff going on there. I was researching in the background as he was going.
Some history, Josh.
Nice to hear someone finally talk about Mayo cut plug football. They made a baseball set too, but that's an awesome set. Edgar Allan Poe's nephew is in that set. Poe played for Princeton, I think, but he's in there. So some awesome stuff.
The Edgar Allan Poe.
Don't stop now, Josh. You're on a roll. What else? Who else was in that set?
I mean, and then the Anonymous is like the most famous card, but Poe's nephew's in there. So yeah.
Interesting. I'm not familiar with the Anonymous football set. There is an Anonymous hockey set from 1933 that's well known, but
it's an Anonymous card. The set's called the Mayo cut plugs. It's N300 is their is the American Card Catalog index number. Just one card, they didn't know who it was, and it's Spalding, and they figured it out later on. But
Josh is coming in hot.
I know my 19th century American literature, so
I have a feeling Josh might impress people tonight and moving forward here.
Watch out. I feel a whole new energy. I feel a whole new vibe.
Nevermore, Josh. Nevermore.
So for those of you who, many of you are familiar with the Hogecast on YouTube and podcasts where you can listen to Chris's podcasts regularly. But Chris also has a style of posting that he does on Twitter. I think it's the only place I really see Chris doing these posts is on Twitter, but he will basically take. Chris is an avid podcast listener, you guys, and he will listen to a podcast. If you don't know, he will then look at the transcript from that podcast. He will screenshot it, and he will kind of highlight a section that really spoke to him, that resonated with him, and he'll share that on his Twitter with complete attribution to the author of the podcast. Without comment, Chris. You often do it without
with comments. Yeah, I never comment. Yeah. Just
share it. So the last night actually, I'm out walking late, going for my almost nightly walk, and I'm listening to one of my go-to podcasts. I'm listening to Stacking Slabs with Brett McGrath. One of his finest episodes ever, by the way, was dropped by Brett. I don't know when it was dropped, but I listened to it last night. I took 2 nights off of walking for various reasons. And I'm listening, and Brett, in this episode, he drops nugget after nugget after nugget. Talk to me so much. And at the end, towards the end of the episode, he drops what is the final of the nuggets. And I'm thinking to myself, and I'm inspired by Chris. I'm like, God, I kind of want to screenshot this like Chris does and share it to Twitter or Instagram. But that's Chris's style, so I didn't do it. So I screenshot, I send it to Chris, and I go, here's one for you,
Jeremy, it was a great share. I loved it. Loved that episode. And I didn't invent the screenshot of the podcast. I took that from like other people I saw like in other areas of Twitter doing that. Like there's a guy I follow who does it for passages from books. He'll like screenshot a passage that he's like reading on his Kindle or whatever. He screenshots it, then he like kind of quotes the part that he likes. Like I didn't invent that. Like anybody who wants to do that, please. It'd be really cool.
Yeah. So Skeppy here says, quit saying nuggets. Now I'm hungry. So my exact message to Chris was, here's one for you. And I give it. And then I said, lots of high-qual nugs in this piece by Brett. Yes, I said high-qual nugs. I don't know where. Sometimes I'm just being silly. But let me read
HQNs.
Here's an HQN of the highest degree. Let me read you what I had sent to Chris. And maybe if, with his permission, maybe I'll start doing what he does a little bit when a passage from a podcast resonates with me and I think other people would like to hear it. But I don't want to, anyway, let me read it. Here's what it was. It says, here's what it says. If your collection is just a scoreboard, you're always behind. If your collection is a story, you can never lose. Is that magical? Chat, is that not magic, or am I just over? I don't know, Chris. When I sent that to you, like, am I the only one who thinks that was like, that's an amazing way of looking at it? It's about it. It goes to what we were talking about earlier. Collect what makes sense to you. This comes from Orlando and Chris as well. Collect what makes sense to you, and David for that. All of us, really. Don't worry about collecting what everyone else is collecting. Don't rank your cards against someone else's. If your collection is just a scoreboard, you're always behind. Because unless you are Ken Kendrick, someone has a better collection. But if your collection is a story, you can never lose. I freaking love that quote from Brett McGrath. Josh, jump in.
2 points, especially if you are using a scoreboard to determine what a good card is. You're never going to get ahead. And second of all, collect what you like, as long as it's not Polaroids of actors coming out of hotels. That's all I got to say. That's my nugget for tonight.
Oh, I love the Polaroid collection we see on Instagram every so often. I want to hear more from Chris and Joe on this. While you guys capture your thoughts, I'll read a couple of comments from the chat here. First, Jimmy Kirby says, "Great show." I appreciate that, Jimmy Kirby, very much, and welcome to the show. Benny Cromwell says, "Jeremy and guys, hello, enjoying the book." Thank you for that, Benny Cromwell. Really nice to hear that. Mollico says, "Love that statement. Spot on." Chris C, giving us the target on that one. Spot on from For the Game. Mookie Chilson says, "That's a total HQN." Orlando says, "Great statement." Absolutely. Mollico says, "How do you measure yourself against other golfers?" By height. Fair. Dan says, "Set registry is a scoreboard." Absolutely it is. Absolutely. What are you collecting? Flex ability, or are you trying to build your own story? I used to compete. Let me rephrase. I used to have my sets listed on the PSA set registry, but I never worried about upgrading, competing. I was just on there. Now I don't. Now I don't collect those sets anymore, so I don't do it anymore. But yeah, I think Dan's absolutely correct. The set registry is a scoreboard, and a lot of people are so caught up in it that they don't care if they don't like. Hey, let's go spend $900,000 on a way overgraded 1961 Fleer Wilt Chamberlain just so I can get those points. Which Chris from Missouri is like, I follow the registry, but I'm not on it because I don't care about the points. Like, that's the opposite of collecting the registry just for the registry's sake. Now, some people, we talked about gamification earlier on in the show too. Set collecting, if it was gamified, could be a bit more fun. Set collecting is somewhat gamified. Checking off your checklist is a bit of gamification. So it kind of is, but maybe some people want more gamification on that as well. We're going to come around. Mollico says, "Keeping score lacks joy in this, in my opinion." Yeah, I would agree with that. Dan says, "I made an entire video called Why I Collect Obscure Players with a lot of these thoughts." So we're aligned on this. Absolutely. Mollico says, "Also to your point, someone always has more, just like money." Absolutely. And Dan says, "Chris quoted it." Oh, yours. Okay. So who put their hand up there? I think, Josh, I saw your hand go up. So let's go to you, and then we'll go to the other fellas.
So set collecting definitely is this gamification, especially on some sets that have extremely rare short prints. Like go back to 48 Leaf. That page is a ghost.
High number.
Yeah, high number. Oh, no, not high numbers. Leaf has short prints.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm adding to it. Yeah.
Chickle have high numbers. 24 to 36 are all high numbers. The Nagurski's an impossible card to find, especially now it's in the Vortex. So you can forget about it. So stuff like that. 52 Tops, high numbers. The Mantle Through. The rest of that set's of high numbers, and the Brooklyn Dodgers are highly collectible. So it's definitely a game, and I love collecting sets like that. So the hunt is 90% of the fun.
I can't. Sorry, I forget. Did Joe or Chris kind of put your finger up before? Did you want to say something, or do you? If you do, jump in. Joe, go ahead.
Well, I trust Chris to remember what he's thinking more than myself, so I'll go first. There's a lot to say here. In terms of high quality nuggets, everyone should go over to Hoj's Luka Doncic post. That's the latest drop tonight. I'm halfway through Hoj because I have to savor every last little bit of what you're doing, and you have a formula now. You've developed a process, let me say, for the Canadian audience, of essentially arriving at truth, which we all like truth, and truth is subjective, but truth can also be compelling, which leads me to my other comment around storytelling. So I spent a good portion of my life thinking about narrative, narratology, narrator. The position of the narrator in the story is sometimes the story itself. And you go back to Don Quixote and kind of look at the complexity there. But in relation to your collecting style and sort of making meaning of your own path and journey and forward movement and backward movement, your whole mark in the time space continuum that we're lucky enough to have, to be alive and to be collecting in this time, your capacity to narrate your own story is massive and hugely important to your own joy and finding kind of a sense of fulfillment in your collecting path. And so there are more and less compelling narrators. And I think all of us, when we listen to people creating content, when we're out at shows, when we're, engaging in our own internal conversations with maybe our various friends, thinking about, should I do this? Should I do that? And as you guys know, I do a lot of that. Like, I thank you, friends out there, for being patient with me, because I call lifelines all the time. But the credible narrator is the one who not only is convinced of their own truth, of their own reason for going after what they're going after, but also can bring you along in the storytelling. And that is in some respect how I move through the hobby, in terms of people I listen to, people I don't listen to, things I take seriously, things I don't take seriously, and in my own discussions with myself. So I'll leave it there and turn it over to Chris.
Yeah, let's do that, Chris.
There's a lot there. First of all, I think we have
Quixote.
I think we have a hobby, a Sports Cards Live first in the lexicon, narratology. Narratology. I've looked up many words that Joe has mentioned, and every time they're real. I'm gonna get them one of these times. Though one of these times is gonna be a fake word. I'm gonna say, "Oh, you put that in there, didn't you?" I don't know. I thought that was just, there was so much narrating your own story. I think this hobby particularly is magnetic to people who want to narrate their own story. My perception of this hobby has always been that it is filled with players in the game, and there's nobody sitting on the sidelines, and there's nobody in the stands. We're all shaping our narratives. We're all building collections. We're all making choices. Go on,
man. No, that hits me, Chris, because you think about what is having the collector's gene. Why do we collect? Are we collecting to tell our story through our collection? Is that a part of why we collect? To not just to own things, but to communicate and to form an identity. Even the hobby spectrum is your collector, your hobby identity. But is it more? Is our collection? Are we human beings who are trying to narrate something? Is our collection really the narration of our story versus our expression of our love for sports and cards? Is it more than just that? And I've never thought about that before, Chris, until you kind of led me there just now. So I jumped in. I'll let you continue where you were.
I think that's a great train of thought. Actually, Josh was leaning in. Did you have something on that thread, Josh?
Yeah, just about like telling your own personal story. Like you say collect what you like, but you collect what interests you. Like I like history, I like old photography, I like the history of baseball, of hockey, of football, and that all that stuff interests me, and that's reflected in my collection and the stuff that I like, and stuff from my childhood. So I think you're right. That is you look at your cards, it tells you a kind of story of who you are, and I think that's such an innate thing for all of us. But to say it out loud is sort of like putting a term to it,
Yeah, and we all look at the same sea of cards. Whether we're somebody who just came in the hobby yesterday or somebody who's been in it for 70 years, we're all looking at the same sea of cards. But which ones to borrow from Chris from Missouri's metaphor, I'm Chris from Wisconsin, and I'm going to borrow that metaphor and put it like this. We all look at the same table full of the same cards, and whichever ones we reach to pick up and put into our pile, and then I look and see which ones Josh is grabbing to put into his pile, and Joe and Jeremy and everybody, and David and Chris from Missouri and Orlando, and we all do it differently, and it all says something about who we are and what we value and where we're at right now and where we might have been in the past and where we might be going. And cards are like a language we have in common, but it's more than a language. It's so much more than that. It's just so unique. It's a currency we have in common. It's a cultural currency. It's the language of sports and of collectibles and of the concepts like rarity and beauty and aesthetics, and it taps into so many parts of the human experience, just these little pieces of cardboard, and which ones I pick up versus which ones you do.
Joe, you got anything to add, or you kind of set this off?
No, well, I mean, in its actions, like I think you were the one that referenced Descartes tonight, Hoj, with I think therefore I am, and then you get to we are the composite of our actions, our choices, right? And so the choices that we make express things about and that's why, like, getting it down to brass tacks, that's why, like, the 9K OBO in eBay doesn't really mean much, but the sold item for $27.50 in Card Ladder is actually more meaningful, because that's where somebody made a choice and took action in acquiring a card. And I'm bringing it down to like the granular, but on a larger level, like the philosopher Descartes just said, we are the sum of our actions and our choices, and that's what life amounts to. So why would collecting be any different?
Absolutely. This is deep stuff, and we're getting it in the chat too. Charles here says, I hope one day I earn enough credibility in this hobby to join in this conversation. The beautiful thing is, you don't really need the credibility, you just need to want to talk about it, right? You just need to have a thought but he earlier says pictures of men. I don't know what that was in relation to, so I'm going to just kind of define this myself as being like, we are sitting here in a hobby where we collect cards, pieces of cardboard with pictures of human beings on them who play sports. Why are we talking about philosophy and psychology and the meaning of life here? Because it's more than just pictures of men. It really is. It is the theme song of this show. The one of the motto is sports cards is a lifestyle, and it is for me, and I know it is for many other people who are in here and all that. So this is I get off on these sorts of conversations. I completely enjoy and learning and hearing, and even finding new mental pathways, which I just did tonight based on something that Chris said, which came out of something Joe said, and that's what makes this so much fun. Now, talking about new mental pathways, here's a comment from I'm just gonna call him College, because I don't know how to say this, but College here says, how much crossover is there in the Venn diagram of the, in quote, credible narrator and the, in quote, advanced collector? I think that's a really interesting, it's another one of those big topics. And how much crossover is there between the credible narrator and the advanced collector. I would go as far as to say that I don't think that a credible narrator has to be an advanced collector. I think they just have to have passion. They have to have passion and maybe some level of articulation to be able to express what it is, why they like the cards. But I think that the more of an, and we talked about this last week a lot, what is an advanced collector? And I think we kind of, not that we came to a final definition of it, and I unfortunately cannot look to Pops and Comps for that definition, but maybe volume 2 will be able to. But I think one of the kind of conclusions we came to is that the advanced collector is somebody who knows like as much as they can about their lane. You can't really know about all the lanes, and that's the superior collector, or the all-encompassing, the all-knowing, not superior, the all-knowing collector, but someone who just has the ability to remember everything. But I think you can, it's an interesting question, and I'd want to think about it more before I started really giving my thoughts on the answer to this question from college, but I think it's a fun topic. Anyone have any thoughts on that? Chris is in deep thought right now. Josh?
I would say to keep the Edgar Allan Poe narrative going, if you want to talk about credible narrators, and I think it relates to card collecting, you should read William Wilson. And I know Joe knows what that is. So it's a great short story by Edgar Allan Poe. It's probably I think it's his best one. And it's great. I think there's a twist at the end, kind of. It's a great story. Everyone should read it. It's his best.
I'm the only person in the hobby that like literally did not pay attention during high school English class, where I barely scraped by.
You're in Canada. You're in Canada. It's okay.
Yeah, you guys don't read American literature. It's fine. You have like Canadian authors who do you have? Like W.H. Auden, and I think you have some other guys. I think that's it.
I don't know, but it has nothing to do with being in Canada versus the United States or the authors that we study here.
Sorry,
they're all the same. They're all the same.
That was
guys.
a cheap shot.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's okay. It's okay.
I was trying to get you out. I think Hoj has something to say. Let's go to Hoj.
Yeah, let's hear this.
Well, Jeremy, you pointed out rightly that a credible narrator doesn't necessarily need to be an advanced collector, but does an advanced collector need to be a credible narrator?
They want to.
Someone froze.
If I thought
maybe that's Jake.
That's me. Opt out, right? They don't necessarily need to be or have to be, but they might. Again, they could opt out of that. So I don't know what you heard from me there, but are you with me now? Yeah. You got me?
We're
okay.
Good. We're back.
Okay.
We're back.
Okay. Yeah, Chris, you had said, does a credible narrator can be an advanced collector, but does an advanced collector necessarily have to be a credible narrator? And I was saying, I don't think they have to be. They could be if they know how to get the message out, but they might opt out of it too. What were you thinking?
That's a good point. It's a good point. It's like being a credible narrator might be sort of like a skill that, that just an advanced collector could be completely, collecting in their house. They just have packages come to them. They never talk to anybody. They never say anything. They can be very advanced, right? So I think it's a good point.
I appreciate. I think you were quite gracious, Jeremy, in allowing for the fact that a credible narrator does not need to be an advanced collector. I think that's actually an interesting point that we would all do well to observe. And I have come across, collectors in their 5th, 6th year who are not only, they're credible because they're genuine and they're sincere in what they're doing, and they've applied themselves fully in ways that, like sometimes people will be spinning around for, a decade or two, not necessarily clarifying in their own mind what they're up to, or doing the research, as Carvin Chung is wont to say. And so I think it's good to point out that it's not just a matter of longevity.
Fair. Here's a good question. Collector Charles asks, how does one earn credibility? And I think by understanding the subject matter upon which they are narrating upon. You don't have to be advanced collector to know the cards you have. You can still tell a compelling story, but I would say that to be a credible narrator, you are speaking truth. You have done your research. You know the subject matter. I listen to some podcasts, hobby podcasts sometimes, where the narrator of the podcast is speaking and saying things as if they are fact. And I know for certain that what they're saying is not factual. It's simply an opinion, but it is presented as fact. A lot of people have strong opinions that they present as if they're facts. And I don't know if that's overconfidence or just, some other thing going on in their head. But to me, that's how you earn credibility, is you have the experience, no matter how much time that has taken for you to gain. You have the experience, you understand the subject matter, and what you are saying, facts are presented as facts and opinions are presented as opinions. But when opinions are presented as facts, you lose credibility. To me, you completely lose credibility when your opinion is stated as a fact. And sometimes your opinion might be a fact. Don't get me wrong. Your opinion might be a fact. You might get lucky sometimes and back into it because but oftentimes that's my answer to that, at least for now, without the luxury of being able to think it through any further. Anyone have anything to add on to that? Chris?
Yeah, I like that topic a lot. And I thought for an off-the-cuff answer, that was a great one. It ties into some of the stuff I was thinking. Collector Charles actually, I think, gave a great answer to his own question. He has a great question, and then he gave a great answer. He said, being genuine goes a long way. Dude, that's exactly right. I couldn't agree with that more.
100%.
Like, Jeremy, you were pointing this too. I love the way you framed it. You sort of framed it as you can lose credibility if you start mixing up, opinion and fact, or speaking outside of one's expertise. I think that's the right framing for credibility. I think credibility, we can have credibility at all levels. Credibility is very different than expertise. Credibility is I think flows from just saying credibility. Like, one of the most credible things I think a person can say is, I don't know, when they don't know. Yeah. Just that it's something as simple as that. And if they do know, then just saying what they know and staying within that limit. And so I think Charles nailed it. It's being genuine, and then it's being appropriately modest, not overly modest, not underly modest, just appropriately modest. That's my opinion on that.
And that's why you don't have to be an advanced collector to be a credible narrator, because you can be genuine in it, and that, I think, gets you that same credibility. So I'm glad you came back to, and I didn't see that comment by Charles yet, so I found it there. So thank you for highlighting that. I think yeah, that was great. Okay. There was another comment here from Luke Browning, says, why would an advanced collector need to be a credible narrator? It would help the rest of the community, but doesn't minimize their collector knowledge. Absolutely. They don't need to be. That's why I was saying they could opt out, right? So yeah, definitely.
Well, it could actually, as we've discussed in the hobby many times, more than I can't believe I'm even saying this, but being an uncredible narrator actually can be quite beneficial to the uncredible narrator, in the same ways that everyone's got motivations, everyone's got sort of an angle on whatever it is, not just in the collecting world. So that's an interesting thing that I think the hobby is very trained in, pulling that card of people who are maybe doing that from time to time or all the time.
Chris C says credibility comes from both from being both honest and experienced. Yeah. So some listen, it's always funny because, in my chair here, I'm multitask. I got a lot of things going on when this show is running, right? So a real deep question comes up that I'm like, man, I love that question. I want to dive into it. And I got to set aside all the other duties I have here, which there's more than you guys might think, and think about and process and come up with an answer, or at least my thoughts, because I want to talk about it. And but one of the things I enjoy most is my initial sort of thought about the topic, either growing or being completely changed by hearing what the other panelists and what the chat has to say. And these are always the discussions I think I enjoy somewhat the most, are these deep thinking sort of topics that we are very fortunate to get into here quite a bit during Sports Cards Live. So yeah. All right. Feel like that's a good sort of break there to maybe switch up the topic. And one of the things that I put onto it was on the thumbnail. It's even in the title here. I don't even feel like I want to talk about it now, though. It feels so, but I'll just address it because it's in there. Is, you know, we all know that Kevin O'Leary wore the triple Logoman to the Oscars, and that's not the story. The story was Jason Moshra, president of Upper Deck, wrote a comment on, or not a comment, a post on LinkedIn talking about that, and there was some reaction to that in the hobby, and I just don't have it. Oh no, I do, because I think I texted it here. I do have it. I'll read a bit of it. We can just talk about this really briefly, but the discussion that I thought we would have is not about O'Leary wearing it. It's about Jason Moshra's comments on it, and part of it in particular. So what he wrote was, this is from his LinkedIn post. He says, when Kevin O'Leary walked the Oscars red carpet, he was wearing one expensive accessory, a one-of-one 2004 Upper Deck exquisite collection triple Logoman card of Kobe, LeBron, and Michael Jordan. He says, we are used to seeing our cards in slabs, but not mounted in Tiffany white gold and 100 carats of diamonds. My reaction was ... complicated. And he gets into it. He says, mainstream audiences who have never thought about a trading card in their adult lives are suddenly asking questions about value, rarity, and what makes a collectible worth wearing to an awards show. That curiosity is good for the hobby. I think that's somewhat agreeable. He goes on to say, but it's a gaudy move borrowed directly from Logan Paul's playbook. Logan Paul had been wearing his Pikachu Illustrator as a fashion accessory for years before debuting it in a custom diamond pendant at WrestleMania in 2022. He's a showman. The card is part of the spectacle. In my opinion, the hobby doesn't need theater to justify itself. The cards are real. The values are real. Most importantly, the communities built around collecting are real. When mainstream attention arrives organically, it reinforces something authentic. When it feels staged, it creates skepticism, and skepticism is the last thing a hobby built on trust needs. So that's the crux of his post. And I think where I wanted to have a quick discussion here with the panel and see what the chat thinks is Jason right? Do we agree that the hobby doesn't need theater to justify itself, and that when it feels staged, it creates skepticism, and that's the last thing? So does it create, does the fact that it was staged, and it does feel staged, I think it does that does that threaten a hobby that is built on trust? And secondly, does the hobby need theater to justify itself? Because, as he says, the cards speak for themselves. They carry themselves. We don't need that, and that could actually taint the sanctity of them. I know I'm now paraphrasing. So, Jason, I think you're probably going to be listening to this eventually. I'm sorry if I took it a bit out of context, so forgive me. But to the panel, what do we think? Is it if you just had to say, was what happened there good for our hobby, or does it threaten our hobby at all? Josh.
Threatens our hobby. I think it was a completely clown thing to do, and I don't think it creates discussion about the hobby and collectibles. It creates, why did this goofball wear a card with diamonds around it? No, everyone I talked to that knows I collect cards, like, did you see that guy? What a jerk. Like, it was, no one talked about like the card itself. It was just like the spectacle was the story, not the collectability of a card that, let's be honest, no one here is really going to collect. And I know you said this before. I don't think that's good for the hobby when you've got someone like Kevin O'Leary dumping money that really means nothing to him into a card that one or two people are going to buy. It doesn't really affect me at all. It really doesn't. And I know you have a different opinion. I totally respect that. But it doesn't affect how I collect. So I think it's bad, and we don't need this kind of theater to justify our hobby. It's been standing on its own for the past 120 years, and I think we'll be fine without people like Kevin O'Leary.
Yeah, Josh, appreciate your comments. And where my mind just went to something I heard Chris say recently, not on the Hogecast, somewhere else. I forget where you work, maybe with Greg, maybe with Dustin. I forget where I heard you say it, but you were saying that, the hobby is healthier when it grows slow and steady, basically. And I think what we see, what could come of the Kevin O'Leary wearing this thing to the Oscars is a sudden surge. And that surge going to be sustainable? And I think that ties into, Chris, your comments earlier. I think it ties into what Josh is saying too. Is this good or bad? And Josh thinks it's not good. Jason Mashra, he's a great thought leader on LinkedIn. He does it in a very balanced way. And I think he's trying to create a discussion along with, sharing his somewhat opinion on it. And I say it that way because he's not forcing this down your throat. When he's making his posts on Instagram, on LinkedIn, they are not like my way or the highway type of things. They are conversation starters, and he does a great job at that. So Jason, kudos to you, because I think you do. And I really am enjoying your thought leadership on LinkedIn. So thank you for Josh's comment. Chris, what are your thoughts on the topic?
Josh was the perfect first guy to go. I just thought that was such a funny
it was good.
And good comments, and just so much more direct than I'm able to be. So I loved that comment. So here's how I try to answer this. Okay. I wouldn't do it. And just, that's the thought experiment that I ask everybody to put themselves in for a second. Imagine that you're unimaginably wealthy and you have all this success and all this fame, and you're obviously very smart, very accomplished, and all the things. And if you were at that, or whatever, just however you imagine it, would you do that? To the listeners, to the audience, to the chat, would you have done that? I would be astonished at the number of how many people do you think would say yes, I would have done that?
Like, yeah, it's one of those things, Chris, where you can only do it if you're like him or Logan Paul. If you are a showman, right, who is, just that's your on brand. I mean, we're talking about the same guy who wears no pants with every interview that he does.
Right.
That's who we're talking about here, because he has FU monies, and that's his character, is whether he's on Shark Tank or whether he's on CNBC. I mean, no, would not do that. I think, our friend Corey used to sell those chains to put your card
in.
Your
slabs. Yeah, I was thinking about
show
that.
your slabs. I mean, I never took it as gaudy. I took it as a gimmick, right, just something like for, wear on Halloween, like just for totally to poke fun at it, not to try and promote it. So it's like you've taken a gag gift and turned it into a fashion accessory, actually trying to boost up your investment portfolio, because you're not in this for the collecting. We know he is not. Here I am. Communicating opinion is fact. So I'm catching myself here. I do not believe that Kevin O'Leary is truly in this for the collecting. I think he's 100% in it for the money. I don't think he cares about the collectability of these things. I think he only cares about the money. My opinion, not fact, because I don't know the fact there. So yeah, that's kind of where I fall on it, Chris. I of course would of course, would never do it. Is it good or bad for the hobby that he did it? Does the hobby need it? I'm with Josh. I'm with you. I don't think the hobby needs it. And I think it could have short-term gain, but long-term pain, I think, is what we could see out of that. Before we go to Joe, any response from Josh or Chris to anything there, to each other? Josh?
Not a response to Chris, but you need to look at Mookie Chilson's comment in the chat, and I think you should highlight it because it's spot on. There you go.
There's only one bald Canadian I trust on cards, and Mr. Wonderful isn't him. Mookie, I will take that all day long. I should put that on a shirt right there.
That's what Mookie did there. He passed off Wonderful to you guys. You see how he did that sneakily there? It's very smart. Very shrewd move. Okay, I actually want to make 3 points there. The first one is that I wouldn't do that, and I don't think any of us would either. And I think it's a useful thought exercise to just actually think about the mindset of that. like, and how far off of any of our mindsets that is, or at least for me. Like, I can't even imagine myself being in the mindset of that. That's point number one. But point number two is that he does have a right to do it. All right. If he wants to do it, or do any other forms of speech and so on and so forth, or any other, legal behaviors, ethical behaviors, feel free. That's his right. And then the third and final point is that, but then the hobby and Jason and Josh, Jeremy, Joe, and myself, we all have the right to comment on it, to criticize it, to assert what we think are the standards and the types of behavior and the decorum that we want to see in the hobby. And that kind of rounds out the picture, right? Like, if he wants to do that, so be it. But then prepare for the backlash, because I do think plenty of people are going to stand up and say, that's not how we do things around here.
Yeah, Grok says, how do we take away his right? Sorry, Boozle says, Grok, how do we take away his rights? Yeah, we do have the right to do it. And the thing he has the right to wear it. We have the right to comment on it. But Chris, I think in a way we're the fools, because he wants us to talk about it. He wants people to talk about it. It's going to help his investment is what he thinks. It might not, but he thinks it will. So yeah, I think he's the kind of guy who believes any publicity is good publicity, especially free publicity, good or bad. I think he's the kind of guy that would maybe love to know that we're talking about him right now, because here we are, he's living rent free in our heads, kind of thing, But let's go to some Joe. Anything from you first? Yeah, sorry.
Do I get a chance?
Well, you would, except as Christina pointed out, convenient time to grab a snack, Joe. So, but yes, you get to talk. You get to also.
I want to introduce everybody to a word, and Hose, feel free to look it up. But the word is propinquity. And propinquity is like sort of association and or proximity to power. And
Joe, take 90 seconds for this definition as I excuse myself briefly, please.
You got it.
Thank you.
And it was not a snack, Christina. It was something else. Nature called. But anyway, so I think about this situation in the same way that I think about certain NBA owners who, sort of encroach upon, who are we drafting this year, when you have, 20 scouts researching the draft who, weigh in on certain trades when the GM wants to do this. It's sort of like, in a way, it's a little bit of an overstepping with somebody that may or may not really have as full of an understanding as the people in the trenches. And that's obviously hyperbole. Like I'm kind of exaggerating the situation. Or maybe I'm not exaggerating the situation. Maybe I'm actually underselling the magnitude of the situation. But that is why all of us entrenched in the hobby and living it every day would find ourselves a little bit like nonplussed by this overture. And yet I will be the naysayer here. I kind of liked it. I kind of liked it because it reminded me a little bit of Flavor Flav, and wearing something around your neck. And I know, like Logan Paul, and we can all, but it kind of worked out for him, didn't it? Like it kind of worked out for Logan. So are we going to hate the player? Are we going to hate the game? I kind of liked it just because, like, I got to see the card. Like there I was watching a YouTube video, and it's like, oh, like zoom in. I want to see that. I want to see the Jordan auto and the Kobe auto next to each other. Like the card is out there. It's not hidden. It's not in some deep tomb somewhere, somebody diamond hands. Like it's out there. And yes, I realize that like there is a certain amount, like credibility of narrator, not so much. But as someone that likes seeing the cards, like, what you got? Like, you show up at a show, your friends have, like, show me what you got. You got something big? Like, I want to see it. So for that reason alone, Charles Leary, or whatever name, Kevin Leary, sorry. like, good job, like throwing it out there. Let us see that Kobe Jordan Logoman 1 of 1, because it's pretty badass card. If I'm gonna tell the truth. So anyway, sorry to be the naysayer.
No, man, I love the other viewpoint. Like, no, this conversation needed that viewpoint. I would say, just, you know, because what you're saying is not that this is good for the hobby. You're saying, I want to see the card. And this is a way that people are getting to see the card. And, you know, maybe the result will be that a few collectors join the hobby who didn't know they were collectors. A few people discover that they actually might like cards, might look into it, and might join our hobby and build great collections and tell great stories through their collection. Form identities, have better relationships with their children, go open packs with their kids, build sets with their kids, build a collection with their kids. Like that, you can almost guarantee that that's going to happen in at least one instance with the millions of people that have seen that. And it was talked about. A couple of, okay, you guys put up a finger if you want to jump in as I run through some comments here quick. Chris C here says Kevin O'Leary isn't about collecting, he's about status. Okay. Yeah. Gold Hour says not much of a difference between Kevin O'Leary and another very well-known influence card content creator. Collector Charles says Kevin O'Leary isn't a collector, he's a marketer. While it puts eyes on sports cards, it gives the wrong idea on what collecting is all about. That's well said. Skeppy said I should do some short podcasts as I sort through some comments and questions. I'd listen for sure. Skeppy, if you can help me track them, I'd really appreciate it. Chris from Missouri says, I do not want people to think he represents the hobby. He does not represent me. Fair. Charles says, the card speaks for itself. It's a logo card of 3 all-time legends. It does not need to be bedazzled. No, it doesn't. But to attain his goal of getting attention, I think it kind of did need the Tiffany gold and the white and 100 carats of diamonds or whatever. Like that speaks to the people that are like the people in Hollywood, the 100 millionaires and billionaires who are collecting, I think they're called Firkin Foxes or Birkin bags or something like that. Whoever's collecting thank you, Josh. Whoever's collecting the Birkin bags, whoever's driving the Maseratis and the Ferraris and Lambos, like this speaks to them. The people that are all about designer labels, it speaks to them. They can now say, wait a second, there was a card connected to Tiffany, that's a brand, and whoever, I mean, so yeah, I mean, it does speak to some people. It doesn't speak to us. That's for, we don't need it. We already speak the language. We don't speak. That's a foreign language to us. Christy says hobby doesn't need it. 3D 80s kid, irrelevant to the hobby. Mid-Atlantic, Kevin Leary. It's actually O'Leary, guys, but Kevin Leary will leave as quickly as he came, and others like us will be left to clean up the mess. Yeah, that could very well be it. Lonely Basement says, I don't think O'Leary is worried about our opinions. Oh, I don't think he cares about our opinions, but I think he'd be happy to know that hobby narrative is including him in it. Maybe not. Bob Boozle says, news alert, Mr. Wonderful plans apology tour, considers Sports Cards live appearance. Well, hey, he'd be more than welcome on here. And I would say to the chat moderators, which are not very active here anyway, let it fly. Let it fly. Okay. Any more thoughts? Oh, wait. Christina's PC says, I'm with Joe. Charles is standing with his purchase in public at least. He's not ashamed to be buying cards and is vocal and showing them off. Who's does he mean Kevin? Does she mean Kevin or not? I think you mean Kevin, Christina, versus Charles, I think. Foulball says, Jay Lee need to start wearing his cob around his neck. It's a flex. I don't have a cob. Maybe you mean Joe Jackson. And Jahan says, I want to see Jay Lee blinged out with a vintage card and get a bedazzled hat. Oh, that would be fun. Has to mean Kevin. I think so too, Charles.
I called him Charles myself. That's why Christina may have made that over. Yeah. Anyway.
Got it. All right, guys. Any more comments, thoughts on that topic? Thank you, Christina. I see her. She says, yeah, Joe called him Kevin Charles. Okay. Chris Hoge, please.
Did you see what Joe did? Because it was so good. All right. It was so good. He sets us up with some humor, okay, with the propinquity. Okay, he gives us the propinquity. He softens us up. Okay, and then just when we don't know and we're not looking, he hits us with the zag. All right, great zag. Propinquity is a real word, and
Verified.
I don't even remember how it related, but it has to do with with closeness to people. And I thought he was going to take the propinquity and be like, the closeness to. I don't know, but it's a great zag. All right, just the zag that comes when you're just least expecting it. So I was like, actually, I kind of like it. That's just the best zag. I'm so glad we got kind of every point represented on that. And look, that's the great thing here. That I like is that freedom of speech. Let somebody exercise their speech in all the ways and. Let the chips fall where they may. Not freedom from consequences, but freedom of speech.
Appreciate that. I'm just going back to what started this, which was Jason Moshra's post on LinkedIn. He's the president of Upper Deck. And I just want to read the one paragraph that really hit me the most. And I wonder if we all agree with this. It says, in my opinion, propinquity ladder, Chris?
There's been like 10 great propinquity jokes. Yeah. So Joe, just the gift that keeps on giving is his propinquity.
So this one paragraph from Jason's post reads, in my opinion, the hobby doesn't need theater to justify itself. Do we agree with that? I agree with that. I think for 140 years, it really hasn't. The cards are real. Yes, they are. The values are real. That's the one point where I pause where he says the values are real, because the values, yes, we have evidence going for many years, decades, that these cards hold value and they go up and up. But they are not. They are luxury goods. They're not. Well, some people can argue that as well, that they're luxury goods, but for the most part, they are discretionary in life. They come out of our discretionary spending versus our what we need for sustenance and survival. So I'm being very specific, or very almost getting too deep on that one, but the values are real. We know they are, but they're really just based on what the hobby's willing to pay at any given time. He says, most importantly, the communities built around collecting are real. Can't argue that. Like that to me, and I'm glad he brought community into this post. Really glad. And then he goes on to say, when mainstream attention arrives organically, it reinforces something authentic. And I think we do see that in a lot of cases, but we're seeing it manufactured as well. And that's going to happen, guys. This, again, I think a lot of it comes down to, we call it a hobby, and it is a hobby to many of us, but our hobby lives in the industry, and you cannot separate the two. You just can't. Even if you're just picking up your commons for a quarter a piece to fill up your binder, you're buying them. They come from the industry. They unless you're trading at recess for them, but not many of us are going to recess anymore. So any final thoughts on that topic, guys? Or maybe not final, but based on that one paragraph, if I don't see a hand, we will just sort of move on or start wrapping up, because we are already over the 3-hour mark here. Any other topics Josh, go ahead. I see Josh's hand went up.
All right, not a topic, but Dave mentioned this in the first hour. You guys are talking about umpire cards. Do you remember that?
Someone came up in the chat. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's one guy who's in the Baseball Hall of Fame and the Football Hall of Fame, and he's in the Baseball Hall of Fame as an umpire. He's got an umpire card in the 55 Bowman set. His name's Cal Hubbard. And he's in the Football Hall of Fame for the Green Bay Packers. And he's got a Green Bay Packer card, and it's called the Walkers. Was a dry cleaning company in Green Bay. And there's a thing called the Walker Packer Cleaner set from 1934, I believe, and he's in there. So football and baseball Hall of Fame, but there was a question if there were umpire cards, and so there are. So
what about Pro Set football? I know it's way later, but I know that Pro Set hockey had referee cards.
Right. Football didn't. I don't remember them having. I looked that up. I couldn't see one. I could have missed it, but I didn't think football had any refs.
I mean, hockey went as far as having coaches. I think maybe some assistant coaches, broadcasters.
They had broadcasters for sure. Yeah.
Bob Boozle here said Kevin O'Leary keeps increasing his values. Yeah, I mean that's the biggest thing. Which is why Chris C says I'm weary of O'Leary. I am too. When you can just manufacture value by speaking it. Jay Giuliano, good comment here, says The card is the card. O'Leary can flex the card, no different than what happens on Instagram, Facebook, even eBay. No different than owning the Hope Diamond. Hope Diamond is cool and not a museum flex. You know, this is a great comment, Jay. The part that I'm honing in on, I bet Hoj is too, no different than what happens on Instagram by showing a card. The difference is that none of us are on CNBC regularly. None of us are, a shark on Shark Tank. So it's a bit different that way, but the flex isn't really different. It's who's wearing it is the difference versus an unknown person showing, someone who, known to their community, showing a card on it. It's a bit different that way, Jay, but your point is well taken. I think it's a good point there. Joe.
Quick clarification, just in relation to the word propinquity as it pertains to Leary. He accessed, so cards are power, right? Like, I think we would all agree that cards have power. He accessed a direct relationship to this card through whatever financial means he had, so that his propinquity was sort of manifested. And many of us, I think, would find that a little specious in terms of it's like, wow, like you just came out of nowhere and garnered this propinquity. And that was the connection with like certain NBA owners who, sometimes jump in to things they may or may not know. So anyway, that was just the connection with the word association to power, proximity to power. O'Leary got that propinquity immediately upon like accessing that card. Does he deserve it? I think that's the more interesting conversation. Like if Hoj, showed up at the Academy Awards on the red carpet and had like, a Jokic, light blue, totally certified 1-on-1, I'd be like I'd be going crazy. So that there's differences in terms of the context of it all. But anyway, propinquity.
Bro, is this a spelling bee? Anyway, propinquity.
Joe is saying his propinquity isn't quite earned. He
Yeah.
hasn't quite earned his propinquity. Look, I think Chris from Missouri had the critique that resonated the most with me, which was he doesn't want to have any propinquity to a person who is representing the hobby in this fashion. And that is his right. And that is really the concern. And that concern extends to situations beyond just this one. Is like, we have this hobby and many of our loved ones and friends don't really understand it or know that much about it. And also we have lots of friends within the hobby and we think of it a certain way. We want it represented a certain way. We didn't get to vote for who's the face of this hobby, who's representing it to the mainstream, who's representing it to, audiences who are first trickling into this thing. We didn't get a say in that, right? So if we want to see a change in that, then, the best course we have is to speak out about it. And it doesn't, and it can be complicated. Like Jason said, it doesn't have to be black and white. There can be a lot of different points of view on this, but the hope is sort of that if somebody says, wow, is this representative of the card collecting community, that I think it's completely valid to say, I'm not really comfortable being represented that way. I didn't ask to be represented that way. And I just don't think that's what card collecting is all about.
Not my president sort of thing.
Right.
Josh?
The closer to Caesar, the greater the fear. So, be careful who you get close to.
Yeah. Perimeter says watching SCL is the best way to expand your vocabulary. That's why we're here, guys. That's why we're here. Fresh Prince says, never playing against Joe in Scrabble. Wise move. 3 the 80s kid. Next book for Jay Lee, The Sports Cards Live Thesaurus. Yeah, I mean, definitely. And College says, what's the propinquity count at? Yeah, it's a good question. It's more than it should be at this point, but we're not going to let it go, guys. We're not going to let it go. Absolutely. All right. Well, we're at that 3 hour, 15-minute mark already, where I would love to say, hey, will anyone have another topic? And if there's a quick something anyone wants to raise, I'm for it. If we can go another 5-7 minutes sort of thing here. Does anyone on the panel have anything else in mind? Any recent hobby topics, any collecting initiatives, any new cards you've added to your collection you would like to share with us in the audience? the listeners anything at all? If I don't see a hand go up, we're gonna wrap this. We're gonna bring this one home then.
I think we are in propinquity to the show's conclusion.
Okay, there's another one for the count right there, College, if you're keeping track, which will be good. Chris C, yes, there will be a test. There's always a test, guys. Aren't you guys filling out the quizzes at the end of this? All right, guys. Well, this was a fun episode, and it went by really quickly somehow. But I want to thank. Listen, the way this seems to be rolling is we're the way I look at the structure of the show right now, and this show has, Sports Cards Live went through a major transition November 2024. The first 260 something episodes of this show were me and one person, generally speaking, 2-hour discussion interview. And then it changed very organically. It changed into this more variety show where we bring on several guests throughout the evening. And then some of those guests stabilized. Joe was in from the beginning. Chris became a regular. Josh became a regular. And now David Chase has become a regular. And Joe hasn't been as available as he was in the early part of this new transition. So the way I look at it now, just so everyone knows, and just to talk it through, is that we got David Chase kicking things off with me for like the first half, and then Joe being there for the second half. We have Josh and Chris coming on, and by half I mean 90 minutes or so. We have Josh and Chris coming on for the last hour plus overtime, and then we sprinkle on a couple of like featured guests. Tonight we had Orlando and Chris from Missouri. I want to thank them very much for joining. But that's how I'm looking at it right now, and how I see the structure sort of continue. It won't always be that way because of people. We all have lives, and well, I don't really, but we all have sort of lives and availability that changes here and there. But it just so works out that it works out better for Joe to come on later now. It works out great for David to come on the early part. Chris and Josh are night owls, so it works out well for them to come in for the last bit. And I'm really liking the way that this has kind of all fallen into place. And sometimes I double schedule and don't realize it. But for the most part, that's kind of what's happening here. So I hope that you guys out in the chat, people, the podcast listeners, it's different for you guys because you get this in 5 different portions throughout the week. So it's broken up for you. But here during a 3-hour and 15-minute live stream, that's what gives us, I think, the variety, and it seems to be going pretty well right now. So I hope that you guys are enjoying the structure as it has sort of. I feel like we're at a bit of a plateau structure wise now. It's fallen into place with the David Joe kind of dichotomy there, if that's the word for it. Joe probably isn't, but it's good. Okay. And you both bring something different, which is great too, which I love. And then Josh and Chris on the back end. And guys, I got to tell you, you don't know this, but I've been having some, backstage conversations with Josh, and I think we're going to see a bit of a no. Yeah. Josh.
Yes, I'm just goofing around. Yes.
Josh wants to add more to the show, and I think he is going to be doing that. So that's great. I appreciate that from all you guys and all the regulars and all the featured guests that we do manage to bring on here regularly, and there will be more of them for sure. So Charles is enjoying it very much. Appreciate it. Jeremy from California, I'm glad you're here. Thank you so much for the comment. Foulball says you assume that all of us have a life. Well, I just know that sports cards is my life. So appreciate that. Collector Charles says breath of fresh air in the hobby content. Well, love that. Happy to provide that along with my fellow panelists and guests and all of that. Thank you, Filippelli. Appreciate it. Chris C says, if I have a copy of a Prince card, it is a reprint. Very good. Bob Boozle Newsler, Jeremy Lee avoids cancellation with new format. That's good. Appreciate it. Hoops Hobby Hangout says you're killing it. Always great stuff. Thank you. College says awesome show is always great discussion. Great show from Chris. Thank you, Yankees fan. Appreciate that. Guys, this has been a great one. I'm very happy. And thank you again to all our guests tonight, the regulars. I'll be back tomorrow night for the Fanatics Collect weekly auction ending watch party. No episode next Saturday, guys. But if you're on podcast, you will get content out of me over there. Very Canadian, very polite, says Charles. Laura, thank you for being here as always. With that, guys, this episode of Sports Cards Live here on March the 28th, 2026 is now over.
Over.
With a pause.
Over.
Oh, you guys are the best. And with that, everybody, this episode of Sports Cards Live is now over. Have a great evening.
Thanks for tuning in and being a part of the Sports Cards Live community. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and most of all, keep collecting. More great content to come. Sports Cards is a lifestyle.